Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, January 24, 2023. It's the regularly scheduled regular meeting of the for budget purposes at 8:35 a.m. We're getting started. First item on our agenda is the minutes of the January 17, 2023 meeting. Any comments or corrections on the minutes?
None here.
I move we approve the minutes. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Kathleen, you can hear us, Kathleen?
Yes, I can.
Public comments, members of the public. I don't see any. Well, I see Alan here. Anybody on Zoom?
There are people on Zoom, but no one.
Okay, but members of the public are welcome to provide comments on the agenda topic scheduled for review and or vote. If anyone wants to send comments electronically, they can send them to bosdistribution@buchananct.gov and we'll read them before the end of the meeting. So getting into the budget, first presenter today is our illustrious head of our health department, Jen Allison. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning, everyone.
How long are we planning on having each session, Josh?
15 minutes. We have to go quick. So I'm going to gloss over stats and get to the main points.
In health and human services, we have 8:30 tonight.
Oh, a whole hour? 8:39. Okay,
So go.
Jen. Go.
36.
So the health department mission statement, it is the mission of the health department to control preventable diseases through education, inspections, and monitoring by enforcing federal, state, and local codes, laws, and regulations for maintaining and promoting public health. These are the 10 essential. Where?
You need to turn the video off for whoever did that.
Turning the video presentation. Oh, well, now. Tucker, now it's on the wrong.
It's like a well-oiled machine.
It won't.
Got it. You good?
Yeah. Okay, so the 10 essential services of public health, by statute of Connecticut General Statute, health departments have to provide basic health services. The state health department has adopted the NACCHO 10 essential public health services as, the guidance for our responsibilities. Responsibilities, obviously, we're still managing the COVID pandemic, entering year 4, responsible for carrying out all aspects of the public health code and general statutes pertaining to public health. We license and inspect all food service establishments, daycare salons, public pools, septic and refuse trucks, private wells, lead inspections and septic inspections. We review all building permits for properties on septic systems and or private well. We provide case management of all New Canaan children found to have an elevated blood lead level of 3.5 micrograms per deciliter or greater. We manage all infectious diseases. We respond to various complaints, particularly with landlord-tenant disputes. And then we also provide written comments for all P&Z and Inland Wetland Commission applications. Major changes to the health department. We've hired 3 part-time public health nurses that are temporary through the grant of the ELC grant 2 that runs through May of 2024. My registered sanitarian Chris left in October to go to Reading for a 4-day work week and a shorter commute. We hired Gino from Ridgefield, who has 24 years experience in all the licenses and certifications. We got lucky because there's quite a public health shortage of workers in the state right now. Some major changes for 23-24. We're re-enrolled in the Connecticut vaccine program through state DPH immunization program. DPH has expanded the vaccines available. Vaccines are provided for free from state DPH from CDC grant. ELC grant 2 is the newest grant that we received, and that's to cover the 3 part-time nurses to help with administering vaccines, COVID testing, health promotion, and any other communicable disease or foodborne illness outbreak. The legislature last May passed an unfunded mandate that kind of took all the health departments by surprise, which requires local health departments to provide QPR, question, persuade, and refer suicide prevention training in their communities. State DPH has provided the QPR trainer of trainers certification course. Myself and Shannon Valerie have taken that. We have one more course to take, and then we'll be providing free QPR suicide prevention trainings in New Canaan. And again, with an unfunded mandate, there's costs associated with that. So we had to buy the books for the training, the PowerPoint, and the certificates. That was, of course, not covered by the state when they passed that law.
How much training, how much are they requiring in terms of education? And
They don't have like a set number, so it's really what we really want to go after. And so our thought is, to start with the youth groups,
right,
try to get to the coaches, the church groups, and start giving the information of how to, what signs to look out for. But they haven't given us an exact number, which I guess is good in a way. So they didn't say you have to, train 1,000 people, but
Yeah.
the more the merrier,
Right.
especially with the mental health crisis that Bethany's group is dealing with.
Right.
The more we can do mental health training, the better on all fronts. Also last legislative season, they passed an act reducing lead poisoning, which lowered the levels for what's considered an elevated blood lead level. We were promised at the time that we were going to get ARPA funds from the state, and this wouldn't be an unfunded mandate. It went into effect a couple weeks ago, and to date, we have not received any money. So at this point, it's another unfunded mandate. And since January 1st alone, I've gotten 7 new EBLL cases, which there's a lot of time that goes into lead cases between doing the risk assessment, doing the case management, doing the abatement plans, doing the clearance work, following up. So we're hopeful that eventually money will come down where we would be able to, help contract out to some of this.
so how do these cases come on your radar? And what do you anticipate the cost of this new unfunded mandate?
So we have 6 surveillance systems at the health department. I have the health director every day has to go into. So one of them is Maven, which is the lead poisoning program. So every morning I go in and look, and it puts in your dashboard how many new cases you have, whether it's an elevated blood lead level or if it's an environmental one. Because what people aren't understanding, especially the ones that came in from New York, they have New York pediatricians who don't know the Connecticut statutes. So when their kid comes back with a slightly elevated level, the New York pediatricians are telling them, hey, get your house tested, not knowing the ramifications of that.
Yeah.
When you do that and you have a child under 6 in residence in Connecticut, you're automatically now going to abatement on any defective surfaces, or that wouldn't be mandated. So it's a lot of it is education. So the state health department is working with the pediatricians in New York to try to get them up to speed. I work with our New Canaan pediatricians all the time, and they're great. So again, it's more about education and it's a great thing because obviously lead does cause a lot of damage. So, but it's just,
Hey, Jen, how much were we supposed to get from the state?
they
for
never
this?
gave us numbers. They were trying to figure out how to work it. If they were going to do it by, how many residents you have, or if they were going to do it, how many cases you have. So that's part of the delay, is that they're telling us they haven't figured it out. But my concern is, like everyone's concerned, the cities that have a bigger, older housing stock and lead problem will, be the ones that probably get more of the money. But from Data Haven report from 2021, New Canaan has 2,833 households living in structures built prior to 1960. Now, we don't know how many of those have children under 6 living in residence, but that's where the law, triggers in. So it's always concerned with older housing stock. This is just a cases you see this winter. We didn't have the normal spike we normally have, which thankfully. This is just inspection and permit data. PCR testing, we're still doing PCR testing at Irwin with Progressive Diagnostics. In the year we've been working with Progressive Diagnostics, we've done 2,217 tests. We don't have any time frame yet of when that's going to end. I'm thinking maybe, you know, March 1st if it remains low. We still will have rapid testing, so they can still come to us for rapid testing, but we haven't finalized that yet. And here's the rapid testing numbers of 1,000 we've done there. Vaccination numbers, pretty much self-explanatory. Flu vaccines, we've done 724 to date. We received free flu vaccine from the state too. And this year it really came in handy because the pediatricians were doing so many clinics. So we kind of handled the overflow to help them out. And a lot of pharmacies don't do younger children. So again, it was free. So it was easy for the residents just to come to us, and we accommodated around school hours and work hours because my 3 nurses that are on the grant all live in New Canaan. And so they all are very flexible with time, which is great. Homebound, we did 507 in the past year of a homebound, and homebound also includes those that, you know, wouldn't be comfortable in environment regardless of, you know, whether it's physical or what. So again, and we also have done Waveney Inn, Waveney Life Care, Silver Hill, you know, town departments, the schools, obviously. This is budget purposes. You'll see in part-time, there's an increase in part-time. Part of that is the original 30,000 that was budgeted for part-time. 25,000 of that is Dr. Reed's medical director salary. Now, I used to get a grant that covered half of that for around 12,000. The state decided in August of last year, after we've already begun the fiscal year, that they're not going to allow medical directors to be part of the FEP grant anymore. So we all had to pivot at the last second, all the health departments, when the state doesn't seem to grasp when our budgets go in and when they do things. So I am requesting an increase in the part-time budget to also help with any extra clerical staff we need through the 9 million things that we're doing. I've reduced the overtime budget by 5,000, trying to offset some of that. And I also reduced 1,000 from the voice data because we weren't getting near that 4,000 that we were budgeted for. So it's also hard because we haven't had the budget since, you know, 2020 on our own, and we've had COVID. So trying to put everything together is, you know, not the easiest. And, but other than that, nothing's really.
So we got lucky with Chris leaving and then
Oh,
Gino
yeah.
stepping up. You're fully staffed other than that though, right? We're good.
Mhm.
I mean, I think people in the last 4 years have come to understand just how important it is to have a, you know, #1 health department.
Well, and statewide, there's a shortage because, you know, a lot of people retired early, and then a lot of the younger kids, you know, from college aren't wanting to get into this because of all the stress, and you have to be a jack of a million trades. You know, even when you do a food inspection, you have to know about plumbing, you have to know about everything, and getting all this certifications and degrees when it's not really something they're looking for. So we're working with the universities trying to help with workforce development. So we'll see.
Any new initiatives that you just want to mention?
Mhm.
New initiatives that you guys might have on the horizon?
One of the things that I'll be talking about later is online permitting, and then also with,
Do we not have online permanent?
no, that will be coming up. For my capital requests, the health department's requesting 25,000 for a second vehicle. As you recall, last year, we got 50,000. I did order an SUV, but whatever comes in, basically, whenever it comes in is what I'll get. I don't care about the color. And it'll be around 35,000. I don't have the exact amount yet. That's why I haven't come back to BOS. I know I have to come back to BOS for the approval. And then whatever is left over from that amount, we're going to carry over to add to the 25,000 to buy an electric vehicle. And I've been talking with Tiger, we can even get the charger right at Vine Cottage. So it won't be an issue, you know, with that. And Tiger's group, Wetlands and P&Z took me out in their little boat and it's pretty cool.
That'd be great.
The other big capital request is $100,000 to purchase online permitting. Now that's just a guesstimate. It could come in a lot less because one of the companies we're looking at right now, OpenGov, is in 50 communities in Connecticut. They're in 105 communities in Massachusetts and the entire state of Rhode Island. OpenGov has a contract with the CROG up in Hartford for 60% discount off the cost if purchased before June 30th. So if it gets by all the boards through funding season, then I would work with finance and either doing a special appropriation or getting a requisition against July in June in order to get that 60% discount. The online permitting would streamline the relicensing for restaurants, salons, public pools, trucks, septic system wells, and plan submissions. I've been here 9 years this week, and this has been something we've been talking about for 9 years. When Steve Kleppen was the town planner back then, we were looking at a Tyler base because of Municity with finance, Munis with finance. And that program back then was like well over 200,000. It was
I
crazy.
remember that.
So it wasn't like an option really back then. So along the way, the building department purchased Municity. That was, the contract was supposed to include a health department P&Z module. They've never delivered that, nor has there ever been an online component. And it doesn't talk to GIS and it doesn't take credit cards. I mean, there's a whole slew of issues.
How many, within the state of Connecticut, how many towns, let's put it this way, don't have permitting?
Not many that I know of. We're probably one of the only, we're definitely one of the only ones in Fairfield County. Even Reading,
Excuse me, happen to know Greenwich actually recently went to municipal. So Greenwich now has municipal, but they don't have online permitting.
And Brian,
again, this is my budget presentation.
Yeah. Come on.
I can't believe we don't have online permitting. I mean,
Well,
it's
and
just-
that's what we hear from everybody.
Darien has it. I mean,
Exactly. So the OpenGov, Darien, Stanford, Ridgefield, Shelton, Trumbull, we have site visits set up for going to Ridgefield, and then Kathleen, Sarah, and Maria are going to go to Darien, so we get different perspectives. They did give us a presentation online because the main issue that we want is, you know, for financial, we should not be only taking in paper checks like it's 1985.
yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, people should be able to electronically pay by check and get a credit card. They don't want the fee with the credit card, they can do electronic check. But the main point is we can put the GL account codes to connect to Munis to go directly into our accounts, which will be better for the auditors and everybody because there's no human error of employees touching checks and taking all the time, which is checks.
It's 2023. We have, 30 something parents out there who don't have checkbooks. They don't know how to write a check.
I don't own a checkbook.
We've got to get into the 21st century.
And according to census data in New Canaan, 96.7% of New Canaan households have a computer, 96.7%
Jen,
of
yeah,
households.
we're going to run over if you don't. The Board of Finance will spend more time on this than we will. So let's move on to, we also have to cover fees. So
Okay, and I guess we're going to skip the rest, and then that would be the revenue.
let's do your revenue and then we got to do fees, your fee memo.
There's nothing really changing in the revenue except a little increase in the septic permits.
Would there be an increase in revenue if we implement an online permitting? Thanks.
We'll see, because there is work being done without permits that will be able to be caught
Right.
easier.
So the fees haven't changed, Jen?
No, and then I did a fee comparison for all you guys, so you can show.
Or
The
it's-
only thing I'm changing, proposing to change is, the restaurants. Where's my,
You indicate in red, but these are not in colors. So which ones are changing?
I did this so long ago.
Food establishments and septic.
Yep.
So you bumped those?
Oh, the column on the right has the increase.
I don't know, because mine was in
Not with that.
months ago.
Yes, the column on the right is the increase.
So they're modest increases for septic.
Right.
And restaurant licensing.
Right, because we haven't done any fee updates since 2018 because of obviously COVID.
Yeah,
But this gives you all the towns around us, so you see where we're at. We never like to be the highest, and obviously we never like to be the lowest.
yeah, it looked fine.
Kathleen, any questions? We're gonna move.
No, everything seems reasonable. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Great
Thank you,
job.
Jen.
Thank you. You got 4 minutes, Bethany. No, seriously, take your 10 or 15 minutes.
Tucker? Oh, no, we got it. Okay. So we're gonna do,
Tucker the rescue.
I know. Yeah, but I want,
beginning.
I wanted to do, wanted to do, all right, so here we go. I'm Bethany Zarro, the Director for Human Services, the counterpart to the Health Department. So our mission statement, as usual, to help all New Canaan residents function optimally by developing programs and activities that address developmental needs, as well as by helping residents obtain appropriate social services and resources. And it's there we go. Okay, so here is our Human Services Department broken down with the mission statement in mind. We have individual assistance and we have community outreach and education. In order to, with those coupled together and having a fluid movement through everything, we tend to optimize on the capabilities of the community and the caseworkers. We have 2 caseworkers. One is a youth family caseworker, Jackie DeLuey, our adult senior caseworker, Marcy Rand. They are both social workers and we divide the case management up. We have one admin and myself, and together we create the help meet the needs of the community. So our population served about 20,000 people. You can see the statistics here, which is about 7,000 households. Our clientele is staying in the range of about 1,100 residents, and that assistance is provided through our own programs and local agencies, as well as state and federal programs. And you can see the breakdown from children, adults, and older adults. Our older adults, 65 plus, is our primary in terms of numbers. Case management is pretty equal, though, in terms of adults and older adults needing types of programs and local help. These are the state and federal programs. We had the Department of Social Services, and you do an application, you can complete online, or you can come into Human Services. We'll do this with you. Husky Medicaid is the state health insurance plan. We have Connecticut Home Care Program for the elderly, which you have to qualify for through our Agency on Aging. Choices, which is our state health insurance plan. Marcy and I are both Choices counselors. We have to stay up to date in order to maintain our certification. We've got the Medicare, including the savings program, energy assistance, which is going on right now. And with the economic environment and the cost of energy, this has been a very active program. We have renter's rebate, which is seasonal. It's in August of August to October of each year. And then we have our ongoing food stamps. So some statistics, you can see that this is our medical benefits plan broken down, and you can get sort of a trend going through the years. It all depends on the qualifications. So the fact that 20 to 21 Husky A, which is families, that includes children and families that qualify. The federal poverty lines change, and so this changes the qualification numbers as well. But they've really tried to keep, they've kept it, it's been very, very stable for the past few years. Let me see, Husky B is for families that the parents don't qualify, but since their income puts the children in qualification. Husky C, that is Husky, which is for those that are less than 65 years old, and they cannot afford the health insurance themselves, or the disabled. And then Husky D, that is for the Husky, those 65 and older or disabled. So you can see the Medicare Savings Program, that is something that just helps people in some type of federal poverty level to help pay for the extenuating cost outside of the Medicare. So by assistance type, this is state information. Cash is very difficult to get. Not a lot of people qualify. The food has maintained a level, with medical maintaining a level of functioning, and the amount of residents that qualify in our town. So from what we try to see, we've got the state numbers through the Social Services Department. So we also have our own human service clients. And from what we can tell, these are the clients that we have that qualify for DSS programs. They are currently in the program, but they are also reaching out to us for assistance as well. And this gives you an idea. Renter's rebate, energy assistance is done through us, so it is 100%. You can, if you'd like, go through energy assistance yourself with Community Action of Western Connecticut. It's very difficult. We definitely offer the service, and it's greatly used just because of our access to getting qualified faster than going through your own portals. So here's our case management data. The year to date is as of January 20th compared to the completed fiscal years 21 and 22. Our case management has risen in the youth and family. It really stays the same. We have deaths with the adult senior population. They move away, they move into assisted care. There's much more transition going on with that, where the youth and family, the families want to stay in New Canaan and take advantage of the wonderful school system we have. Domestic violence seems probably comparable to 22, 21 and 22, but this is the domestic violence that we are reaching out to because there's been a DV case with police. We do a community follow-up. There are other people that take advantage of the Domestic Violence Crisis Center on their own to maintain their privacy, and there are many more that go through that route as well. Our referrals are increasing incredibly every day. So last year we did 60, or 3/4 of the way through, or 7 months of the way through, and we have 54 adult seniors with 85 youth family. So we will surpass our seasonal programs. The government is giving less for these renters rebate programs. So it looks like, but we have increased the numbers a little in terms of the number of people participating, but the cost, they're paying less. There's less of a rebate. Financial assistance, you can see, is written in terms of category as well as the payment source. Year to date, we've spent $27,000. Normally the entire year we spend anywhere from, we try to stay between 25 and 30,000. We're going to surpass that this year. with the needs of the residents and the economy. So our food pantry data, you can tell from January until December has doubled. Our shoppers, this gives you an idea. You can look at the numbers how you want, but it's broken down. The duplications in terms of the shoppers, some people are going once to twice a month now. It is every 2 weeks. So some people are using the food pantry twice a month now, more than they used to. And then the unduplicated ages, these are the ages that we're seeing are coming into the food pantry.
Are we having issues with food in
No,
terms
the
of,
community is unbelievable with
it's all,
their
it's all
outreach.
donations and volunteer work,
The
right?
food drives, the volunteers, the monetary donations from the churches, from everywhere.
Right.
We are not lacking in that support, and this is why we're able to accommodate.
That's great.
So Human Services has other programs that's separate from the individual case management and agency partnering. This is what we do on site ourselves with the 2 caseworkers and myself and the admin, the program coordinator. We're able to have these programs that there has been a need. And so through finding out the needs, we definitely have provided. They're endless and we love doing them. If there is another need, we'll add. Right now, we are going to be adding to Lapham Center. We're finding that there's a need for grief counseling at the Lapham Center. So Marcy and I, you need 2 people for the grief counseling. We'll be completing our grief counseling certification and able to run programs at Lapham as well as other sites if needed. We are doing soft marketing endeavors. I mean, we want people like their privacy, but we want them to know we are out there. So this was a media outlet we ran for the Golden Year special edition in the New Canaan Advertiser. They have it twice a year. We will probably run it once a year. The other, during the holiday season, we have our public service announcements that we put in these media outlets. The New Canaanite and Advertiser are very, very kind and give us a huge discount in order to get these PSAs out to the community. I don't know why it's not going on to the final.
Bethany, could you?
There we go. So here are the community partnering and education that we do. This is just a few of them. But it's for the past few years, we've been networking and partnering like crazy. And it really comes back to help the resident. So we're very, very pleased at the communication we're having. Police, fire, EMS, Waveney Care, DVCC. These are all the and plus more. So this year, the money that we want to increase, our fixed costs are really staying the same, but it's this grant request where we're finding that we are needing more and calling more agencies for resources that can provide for the clients. And this year we've added four agencies that we have used quite a bit this year, and they are able to provide financial and counseling resources that we as a town cannot provide, such as security deposits and things like that. So
So that's how they get on the list. If you
so
work with
we
them.
use them financially as well as counseling, and they come on site and they will do their counseling. This has provided so much more emphasis on helping someone with behavioral health, financial health. It allows us to take in more clients and resource them to other agencies, and we all work together.
And so these are small amounts, but they're kind
We're
of
starting, we're
starting out.
requesting let me go on to the next page. Well, this is our summary. I just wanted to show you the fluidity of our department and what we need to do in order for the mission statement to maintain its access to the residents for individual help as well as education of the community. So here's our requested budget. The last four highlighted are we have not added new agencies in years. We would like to add Catholic Charities, Elder House, Family Centers, and Community Action Agency of Western Connecticut, starting them out just to see how this works out at $2,500 a year. The other agencies, this is where our increase in our budget request is. We would like to, what are we doing? Oh, the domestic violence. The numbers have increased incredibly at the crisis center. So we would like to give them what they've requested for 10,000 instead of the 5 that we've historically given them. So the numbers are there.
So your operating budget is less than 1% increase, but your agencies are 12.6.
Yeah.
12.8.
The new Canaan urgent assessment has also been added to that other agencies. It's not on that one. So you should be showing a 70%.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Is that the way,
Okay,
is that the Silver Hill project,
that's the Silver Hill project, which we work very closely with. and
which we
so-
funded in part with ARPA? Is that correct?
In full.
In full? Yeah.
So could you just give a quick update on Nakua?
Yes, so the New Canaan Urgent Assessment Program, which we were on a 1-year pilot program to meet the needs of the community in terms of getting an immediate assessment within 48 hours when someone is experiencing some type of mental health, not at the level of needing to go to an emergency room yet, but there's concern and an assessment needs to be done. So through ARPA funds, someone can call New Canaan Urgent Assessment at Silver Hill and within 48 hours be evaluated by a medical professional staff. And then from there, there's a soft, gentle handoff to the next part of their mental health journey. Anybody from New Canaan, this is a fee that's charged. It's anywhere from $1,300 to $1,500. New Canaan will pay for this through the ARPA funds. The care afterwards is definitely another issue, but we want to get this urgent assessment in as quickly as possible to prevent a crisis from happening. So we're following this for the past year, but we would like this to be a line item, a program that New Canaan continues to have on a yearly basis and to definitely create this partnering sustainable with Silver Hill.
And that was always the goal, right? Is to make
was
it,
always
to
the
kick it
goal.
off with ARPA. I mean, maybe we could, I think we still have our money left over. I'm not sure, but I think we do. So maybe we could look at a redeployment. I can't think of a better use of funds.
This is
for ARPA than
incredible.
that.
As Kevin has said, and I've said, I mean, how do you value one human life?
Right.
If it's your child, if it's a community member, it's just priceless. And I think it's something in this day and age.
How did it work out in terms of usage and in terms of financials?
Out, there was a big influx. Things were quieter over the summer. I keep constant contact with Silver Hill, and we've had a surge again.
Was there or is there enough money? Actually, is there? Because we're in
Yes,
the middle of.
There is enough money with the ARPA funds. We are meeting the criteria. They estimated, and this is all new to them too. So we've done a slow launching of this. And now with the past 6 months, that's half over, we're going into the 7th month. We are seeing that definitely the need for anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. Those are the 3 top diagnoses that are coming in. If you look at the other service agencies that we're using, looking at kids in crisis, child
I
guidance,
see we're bumping that up too.
their numbers are coming in with the same upticks
Right.
in the anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, which shows us that we are finding a disparity. We're meeting it. We are getting help for the community
Yeah.
with this.
And we'll spend more time with this, with the Board of
Yeah.
Finance in February. So
We could go on. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
thank you. Have we-
And you continued efforts to
Kathleen, any
try to partner
questions?
with Darien and another town.
We're working on
Good.
that.
Kathleen, any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you, Bethany. Great job.
Thank you, Harrison. Dr. Pierce was with us today, the chairman of the Health and Human Services Commission. So, good morning.
Whatever you want, Nancy.
So Nancy Upton, New Canaan EMS president, and I'm also here with Alec Montgomery, who's our treasurer.
And Tom is also
And
here from our commission.
EMS commission, Tom Tarantino. All right, so if we are looking at, we have no presentation per se. We have the normal submission for our operating budget. The first item is our paramedic contract. The paramedic is the hired contracted personnel from Norwalk Hospital. That payment has been a fixed 5-year payment. We're in the 5th year.
5th year.
So the next contract was a renegotiated price and it went up a lot. Their manpower has gone up a lot. And obviously they offered 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. 5 was the most economical. So you can see it's a 31% increase. And that is the number. So we would be signing a contract for 5 years, fixed rate. Okay.
And that's with
Norwalk.
Norwalk still.
Stanford chose not to.
Chose not to
this year.
bid at all. Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that didn't help.
The industries, they're all hurting for help. They don't have enough manpower themselves. So to contract out 24/7, 5 years straight,
Wow,
that's a tough commitment.
right.
The next, so many of these line items are what your internal groups provide to us. We don't come up with a number.
Right.
But what we do have is that your contribution to us to cover some of our operating expenses,
Mhm.
because there's so many vendors involved with all of our supplies and various vendors, we pay those bills. So it's easier for you to give us an allocation. So that's why it's called a contribution. We want to keep it flat this year because the medic contract went up so much. And the third and final item I would mention on the operating budget is the one at the very bottom called Information Services. That is actually the organization called CMed. Part of that
CMed.
number, about half, is a required charge per capita for all the municipalities in Region 1 to oversee ambulance activity. So they know who's where, what resources are available. The other half of that expense is what we contract with CMed to do, dispatching. So from a 911 call to PD, which is our PSAP, they then transfer it to our CMed dispatcher, much like they transfer the fire calls to Westport, which is now the Fairfield Regional. So that went up 3% plus 3.5.
But it's pretty
And that
consistent
is-
year to
yes,
year.
It's
Yeah,
exactly.
from
It's-
20 to,
They're a nonprofit.
Right.
They're governed to oversee all those municipalities per capita. That might go up, might go down. And then the other half of that number is the contract that we have with them, which is ongoing every year. So those are really our 3 numbers to present for operating. Okay. And then we come to the capital. Now, usually we just come in and show there's no change, but unfortunately this year we've got a big change. We had budgeted in our 5-year view out that we would need a new ambulance in the fiscal year 23-24. And we've been hearing, same as before, 210, so $210,000. We just heard yesterday that not only will it go up significantly, but it will take you 1 to 2 years to get parts, inventory, supplies, whatever. So our new number for next year is 280 instead of 210. But even if we put the order in now, we might not get it in that fiscal year. It might be the next fiscal year. So we just found out, we're not sure how you want us to work with this presented, but we know it's not going to be 210 next year, and it might not even be next year. It might be the year.
Yeah, this is a
after.
conversation with the Board of Finance in February.
All right. Do we need to resubmit something? Do you want us to change the forecast?
Well, look, you have it in right now for 24.
We have it in for next fiscal year,
Well,
but we
if the
might not.
pricing is definitely going up that significantly. You increase your number, Josh.
Yeah. You will. Okay, so
Yeah.
put 280 in with an asterisk that we might not even be paying it that year
Right.
and we don't know when to put the order in. We might put it in now because we thought we would get it
Right.
next year, but
Yeah.
now it might be 2 years out.
And the one you're replacing is how old?
When we trade them out, they're 9 years. So every 3 years we do one.
Right.
And it takes 9 years to get to the next.
Right.
and why the big price increase? Any,
I don't know enough about the vehicle inventory. Did Mosley?
they don't know.
You know, we,
I mean,
Parts.
it was originally supply chain problems, which is
Originally.
creating the delay.
Sure.
And then surprise, surprise, price.
we don't know
also.
enough about the mechanics. And we just got this information yesterday. We had heard there were delays. We knew this for about a month or two, that we might not be able to get a vehicle for 2 years.
Yeah, and I heard from Amy Kennedy that you
Yeah,
guys were concerned about.
very, very much concerned and
yeah.
that we'd have to take action right now to get it when we thought we wanted it.
Right.
But now we're hearing, as we're pursuing that, oh, and by the way, it's gone up quite a lot.
Well, if I have any say, you guys should get it. So
Okay, so Josh is taking care of that. Great. We did.
since you've kept your salaries flat.
We might be the only ones presenting without salaries here now. We did include metrics this year. It's a very simple thing in your packet. If you want us to explain or.
Well, I found this interesting because
I mean,
almost 1,700 calls,
I think it's important.
2/3 of them result in transport to the hospital. But only half of them, less than half of them have the medic
Okay, so
on the
right.
transport.
So
So
you can't even really compare those two. So take the first one. So we get called.
Hmm.
You might get a cancellation en route.
Right.
That it was an error. PD's already there and they've
Right.
cleared us.
Right.
You might get there and really no problem found. So they say no, or it's a problem, but they refuse to be transported. Or they're
Oh,
gonna have
right.
a family member
Right.
take them to the ED, or they're gonna drive themselves or
Right.
whatever. So you get various stages of you're not going to the hospital.
but you had almost 1,200, almost 100 transports a month in 22. Fiscal year
If you were
22.
to divide by, yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Now, the paramedic. Not every call is requiring a paramedic. So when the dispatcher
Right.
asks those initial questions from the caller,
Right.
they make a decision. If it's breathing, if it's cardiac, absolutely the medic goes. But if they've fallen and they're saying, I'm really not sure, I'm hurt.
So you have a
they
police
might not-
officer there as well as your,
Police would go
Good.
and
Right.
EMS arrives. And if we feel we need or information has changed en route, the medic will be dispatched. So you can always, get the resources later, but these are the initial medic not needed. So it's about half,
how often?
which is great because that means that our volunteers are capable of handling that many calls. These are BLS calls.
Right.
Not every single one needs a medic.
Right, and sometimes, both, you normally have 2 on duty as opposed to 3.
You
Three.
have to have a minimum of 2 EMTs, one driving the rig and one to do patient care.
Right.
When you have a medic involved, you can free up one of the EMTs.
Right.
And oftentimes they will drive the fly car back to headquarters
Right.
and be available for a backup call.
But sometimes Stanford Hospital will back up when our 2
If
are
our,
already out.
so it could be our crew, the 2 EMTs
Right.
are busy and will get help from another town, or the medic is tied up on a call and another ALS,
Right.
advanced life support.
You do an
Oh.
amazing job. Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing job.
I mean, I would suggest maybe even going so far in the future as to quantify from a dollar amount the savings to the town of New Canaan for all of this volunteer work, which involves, staying up all night. Amy said she was up all night the other night with like
Yeah.
five or six
Last night.
calls. But I mean, literally, you could take the total number of calls, whether it's hourly or whatever, and come up with a number, because I think that's really important.
Yeah.
To
if
tell
you
the
were to
people in New
salary
Canaan,
all
this
of
is a
them,
volunteer organization. Obviously, we have the medics and stuff, which we need to have, but otherwise it's all volunteer.
Yeah, you could just take the number of calls and assume times 2
Yep.
and then come up with a $20 hourly rate or something like that.
Exactly.
And then they have to be available.
How's
24
your
by 7, so on
nonprofit?
call too.
How's your nonprofit donations doing?
We're good. We can cover the rest of the operating expenses pretty well.
And you guys are okay with the move of PD? And
We're gonna
'Cause
miss
it-
them for the time they're
Yeah.
not gonna be with us. Yeah, we've got, Tom is involved in the committee that's
Good.
overseeing that, and we have a couple volunteers who are also trying to keep their ears open. It might be more difficult while the construction's going on. And then, of course, you have the new configuration.
Right.
And so what is normal operations going to look like when they come back into the building? And how do we prepare for that or put our 2 cents in that? That doesn't work quite for us. So we've got our hands in the pot.
good.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Thank you for all you do.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tom.
Appreciate it.
Amazing job. Now our new police chief and new deputy police chief. Welcome. Good morning.
Morning.
So we have to give you a hard time to haze you a little bit. Chief.
Go. No, I just.
You're connected.
While we're waiting, the Canaan EMS is just phenomenal. group.
Amazing.
We can't say enough. You get paid to do it.
You know, we could calculate what it would cost.
There.
Absolutely. I think they should do it every year. You can do the cost, what they're saving the town. I know.
Countless hours. I tried to pay them.
Just phenomenal.
amazing.
Yeah. And then they're happy that you guys are staying next door.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
Good
Yeah.
relationship. And I think the new workflow of vehicle traffic, it's gonna work. It's gonna be an adjustment, but what they do now is kind of convoluted. backing in,
Right. Yeah, it's kind of,
Getting out, so it should kind of increase the circulation. We'll make it work.
it's great, chief.
It's taking a while. He's getting. Okay, gotcha. When with video. Okay, make him a co-host, please. That's for you.
Recording in progress.
Let's get you. Let's mute it. I gotta mute him. Co-host. There. Here's your share up here.
That might be.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is,
Share screen later.
close out of this. Okay, so go to share screen. Look, this is your presentation, share. Okay. And then you go to start from the beginning. You need a computer. I would deny that. Doesn't matter. Well, the other thing you can do while that's teeing up is just make this go to one photo of that little one. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, play from current slide, but I don't know why it's
I don't know where that thing is going.
just spinning.
Let's do a right click here.
Let's take, they have it on their tablet, so why don't you start doing that while we figure out why this is not.
Can you control it from over there?
Not his laptop.
He's got something spinning here.
Yeah, this thing's off.
This is an apple.
You can see it on the screen, actually, Bob, you just,
Okay, so we can see it.
we can see it.
Put
So
the
if you
page
just-
down.
Yeah.
Go to the next page.
Oh, it's still locked up. Why don't you take them through it? You don't have it in front of you, you do it one in
Yeah.
front of you? Okay. Let me play with it while you're.
We get this.
Stop sharing for a minute. Want me to use-
All right, there we go. Calling audible. So we've created this presentation, our budget with the assistance of retired Chief Krolakowski, Deputy Chief Walsh and I went through what he compiled before his departure, and we're in pretty close agreement with it. We made some minor adjustments to some salaries, and overall we're at a 3.65 increase to our operating budget, but we'll go through the animal control first. For the capital for animal control, we were asking for a $10,000 increase, or a $10,000 capital expenditure. That's to get the emergency animal control shelter at the New Canaan Veterinary
Right.
Clinic up to state code, so we could use that in emergency situations when our normal shelter is down for whatever reasons.
John, have we been using that New Canaan vet?
We haven't had to yet this year. Typically, when our shelter gets really, really cold, when the temperatures dip down into the single digits, we have to do an alternate location, or for whatever reason that shelter loses power or something like that. But fortunately, we haven't had to do that this year because we have a pretty mild winter. So we haven't had to use it yet. And then the operating request for animal control is 112, 132, 1.56 increase. We are anticipating that our animal control officer will retire this coming year, and during that phase of her outgoing process, she's going to bring on board hopefully a part-time person, train that person, get that person up to speed, and then she'll be able to depart and the new person would take over. That was the plan for last year, but that got delayed a little bit due to some issues, but we're looking for that to occur this year.
Chief, going back to the the facility, as you know, Tiger in his budget has a big number to really tear that whole building down and go forward. Is it anticipated that you're going to build a new control facility, or you're going to just farm it out to third parties
Have to look
altogether?
at that and do a cost comparison and see what's most effective. I think it would probably make sense to build something similar to what we have, nothing too extravagant, but something to accommodate our needs, which is pretty low, but something that we could be open and available to us 24/7. I think using a vet clinic would be cost prohibitive, but we'd have to look at the numbers.
I mean, I think you could even tap the community at large for donations specifically to a new facility.
Yeah. That's it for animal control. Go right into the police department capital summary. This year is a larger request than normal for vehicles. And as our partners at EMS have indicated, that just the vehicle inventory, even for standard vehicles, standard police vehicles, SUVs, is getting increasingly more difficult. We've heard from the highway department that the vehicle repairs are just really a drain on their system. We've had vehicles that normally historically have been down for a few days to a week. They're now down for months, just waiting on parts, water pumps, simple parts that just we can't get from Ford, or they don't have the ability to work on the vehicles because they need computer systems that even McMahon Ford doesn't have. You have to go to Stanford Ford, and so it's Ford's really got us over a barrel on a lot of repair work, and our fleet is aging. More than half of our fleet is over 90,000 miles. If you look at the one of the upcoming slides, it shows our entire inventory, and we've been requested from the Highway Department to get rid of a lot of the older vehicles and get new vehicles on board, so they're not down as much and they don't put as much strain on their system. So this year we're asking for 6 new vehicles. Again, the lead time is up in the air. We planned on getting 3 vehicles last year, but Ford in a month's time changed their pricing structure by $8,000 per vehicle. So that prohibited us from getting 3 vehicles last year. We can only get 2. So this is a big catch-up year for us. We're going to catch up and try to catch up with 6 new vehicles. 5 would go to our frontline patrol. 1 would be an investigative, sort of a soft cover vehicle. And then, as we historically do, we'll work with Highway Department to decide what vehicles would be replaced, what vehicles would be traded in, or if we could use the vehicles in a lesser role within our department, secondary role, side job vehicle or a backup vehicle, that sort of thing. And if it's not suitable for that, we'll turn it over to the town. If the town could use it anywhere else in their fleet, or if it's not worth the cost, that we could just offload it and try to recoup some money through a trade-in.
So we've got more than half our fleet over 90,000. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah, if you look at page 11, you can see of all that's our entire fleet, both frontline and secondary use. There's 21 vehicles there, and I think 12 are over 90,000.
What did you ask for last year?
We asked for 3, but we could only get 2 because of the crisis.
Yeah. supply.
We've tried to be very conservative with that over the years. And that worked when we could repair the vehicles, when they went down and we could get them back in a week, and our highway department could do some of the repairs, but
You don't have the parts.
we just
You can't
don't have the
repair if you don't have the
parts,
parts.
and they don't have the ability a lot of times to work on the vehicles because everything's computerized now, and the computer software is tens of thousands of dollars that even some dealerships aren't purchasing.
And are they jacking up the price of the parts too,
Probably.
in addition to the delays?
It's
Yeah.
just, and we would pay it if we could even just get the parts, but we can't even get the parts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this will be the end of the Crown Vics. They're going to be gone.
they've been gone for several years. Yeah, unfortunately, those were workhorses. They were standard from year to year. They didn't get changed. They were easy to work on, and they just never broke down, but Ford discontinued them several years ago. So they just don't exist anymore. So we're really kind of stuck with the it's the Explorer type Interceptor. That's the industry standard. And when it works great. It's 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive vehicle. It's great in the snow, and it's good to store equipment. But it's just unfortunate when they go down, it's difficult to get them repaired. Other items in our capital ask are pretty much standard year to year: taser replacements, mobile data terminals, our bulletproof vests, the fixed license plate reader program that's up and running and getting started as we speak. And the other items are defibrillators and then a dispatch battery, backup battery. It's a large UPS backup battery system that has been in service for several years now, and the batteries just need to be replaced in them.
Pretty much things that are on there every year.
Pretty much,
Yep.
yes. Yeah.
How about your radios?
Sorry.
How about your radios?
New radios, yes, I think that was on there as well. Both mobile and portable radios, 15,000, 5,000. Those are likewise, we try to refresh those every year, and 15,000 is probably, I think, 3 new portable radios. Those, like everything with a computer chip in it, have gone up astronomically in price. So, and those are also difficult to get. We're waiting on getting purchased, those that we've already trying to purchase from last year. We're still waiting months for those as well. Fortunately,
When we did our tabletop exercise, what did we, you have one satellite radio or 2 satellite radios, or like $8,000 a piece?
I don't think we have any satellite radios.
Maybe
or
does,
phones.
does Fire have it? Was it, well, ask Albie, but I thought we had,
We talked about it with Russ
they're-
about,
yeah.
about getting it, and that's probably a smart.
Yeah.
Communications backup when cell service goes down, radio service goes down, that could be something that might be a smart thing to have. So on, just quickly back to vehicles on page 8, you can see our future forecast for vehicles. Once we catch up this year, we're gonna go to 6, and then we'll go to maybe a 4-3-4-3 program, and that should stabilize our fleet and probably work well for the highway department to cycle older vehicles out. So we're not cycling out 6 every 4 or 5 years. We're just kind of rising it across year to year. That's it on capital. Any other questions on their capital expense?
No,
For operating, our request is 7,110.79. It's a 3.65 increase compared to fiscal year 23. That includes the contractual increases.
when's that contract, the CBA up, chief, CBA, when's it,
The collective bargaining agreement. Yeah.
when's it up?
When is it up? 2025, I believe. I think this one is good to 25. Staffing, we're doing well staffing wise. We have currently 8 members of the department that are eligible for retirement. With the most recent contract, they have what's called a deferred retirement plan, where officers will indicate that they're getting ready to retire, whether a year out or 2 years out, and they receive some pension benefits from that. What that allows us to do is forecast when they're leaving. It's a contractual obligation. So once they sign up for that, they're obligated to leave. So we could plan for that, which we're doing this year. So we know 2 officers are going to be leaving this summer, and we were able to form the hiring process, obtain seats at the police academy in April, and if all goes well, we'll hire 2 officers to replace those officers that are leaving in the summer. So we'll get the ball rolling at least a few months prior to those retirements actually occurring. So rather than traditionally, like we used to do, wait till the retirement occurs, conduct a hiring process, get the person to the academy, and then get them out on field training, which is 6 to 8 month process of having a deficiency in their staffing. We're able to get ahead of that curve a little bit through this retirement plan. Currently, we are at 47 officers. We have 2 officers in the police academy. One's graduating this Friday, actually. So we'll have him out on the road. We have 2 officers in field training currently. And as I said, we have 2 retirements pending this summer, and we've confirmed that we have seats for the upcoming police academy in April. So all seems to be going well for staffing wise. Our overtime is something that we're always very conscious of, and with our scheduling software, you can see on slide 17 that we can track it pretty well as far as what drives our overtime costs and where it comes from. And I always like to see training right at the top, because that shows that we're staying ahead of the curve and we're training our officers and keeping them on the cutting edge of everything. And that should always be at the top. And you can see some of the other items there. And those change year to year, but generally a lot of those are due to contractual obligations. We have to hire a certain number of officers per shifts, and some of those officers sometimes have to be supervisors. So a lot of that is contractually driven. So our overtime request on slide 18 is 523. And that is a slight decrease from fiscal year 23, which is 534. I think we should be all right with that. With our staffing levels back to full complement, we hopefully will be able to hit that mark. And you can see that for fiscal year 23, we're 534. And as of yesterday, we're at 61% of that actual for fiscal year 23. So we're on track with our overtime. We're keeping an eye on it, and we seem to have things going pretty well and under control. So we're pretty confident and comfortable with that number.
So salaries for training is when they go to the range, in part.
Yeah.
That would be addressed were we to have a new training center.
That would be, so right now, let's say we have a 4-hour training block is
Right.
it's typically the minimum that we pay people. If we pull them from off shift, if they're not working, we'll get them for a 4-hour minimum. Contractually, we have to pay them for 4 hours. Now, when we go to Danbury, 2 of those hours are spent when they're driving.
Yeah.
And so we actually train them for 2 hours, but we pay them for an additional 2 hours to drive to and from. With a training facility in town, a lot of the times we can train the people while they're working or continuous to their shift. So we're not obligated for that 4-hour minimum.
Right.
But even if we were to train them for 4 hours, we would get a total 4 hours.
The benefit of that training.
Because they're not
2
driving.
hours, right.
So there's lots that we can do with having a training facility in town. We can get more frequent training. We can get more training hours to our people. And that's going to be the key benefit, is that we can train people rather than giving them 4-hour blocks once or twice or 3 times a year. We can give them hour blocks of training every month. So we can train them more frequently for less time. It'd be much more efficient for us to train them locally.
That was a loaded question.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I mean, you look at the news every morning, every night, and the importance of training PD, first responders is just absolutely paramount. So.
So John, we've built in a salary offset, the first line in your budget for the past few years. We have 142,000, which with the drop plan, I'm wondering if that is beginning to.
That might be something that we have to take a look at. Again, it's going to work out this year, but even with that, we may have some unknown retirements. Not everybody's obligated to utilize that drop plan, and some people won't, as our retired chief didn't.
Right.
Right.
And we do have that captain's vacancy for several months that we haven't filled. We haven't filled that role yet. So, I think we'll still be all right with the salary offset, but we will have to watch and see how that drop plan affects that going forward.
Also, the part-time salaries, is that the animal control part-time person?
That's part-time for animal control and also for our records division. We needed a part-time personnel in there.
Okay. Any questions, Kathleen?
Is literally boarding a plane, but she did send one question, Chief.
Yes.
She said regarding the police vehicles, is there any reason that, since we had budgeted for 3 last year, but the price went up and so we could only get 2, she said, could you come to PD? Couldn't you all come and ask for a special appropriation to purchase the 3rd?
We could, and I know that we
closed on the orders, so we.
Yeah, so along with Ford changing the price last minute, they also closed the ability to make orders within the same month. They really put us in a difficult situation where we couldn't place the orders because we couldn't get the funding approved in the window that they required.
Is this a production problem across automobile manufacturers? These things can't be.
It's not just Ford. Not just Ford.
Yeah, I mean, we really just look at Ford mostly. The Tahoe from Chevy has just been out of our price range as recently. But as Ford increased their prices, it's something that we'll look at next year and see what other vehicles are available too.
I have no further questions.
None here.
Thank you both again.
Thank you,
Congratulations
guys.
Again.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Our illustrious fire commission chairman and 5.78. Ouch. How are you?
Jack, how are you, buddy?
Didn't you get that memo the Board of Finance put out?
What?
That memo? You didn't get the Board of Finance guidance memo?
You guys are off the charts, Jack.
Nobody's coming with a 5 handle yet, so.
Morning, Tucker.
Good morning. Water?
I would
Oh,
like
good,
water,
thanks,
thank you.
Todd.
I was gonna go get a coffee. Didn't get a chance to yet read your report, chief.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't have to plug in anywhere, right?
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you. So is Kathleen out of pocket for the rest of the day?
No, I'm still on right now, but we're going to be taking off soon, so I'll be signing off.
You have any
Just vote
questions?
yes.
You have any questions for the fire chief before?
No, I'm still with you, so I've been texting to Tucker if I have any.
Good. You didn't mute it.
So Albie, this is your first budget or? let's see,
Second.
Second budget.
Second.
Hmm.
Mine I actually put together though.
That's right. What's the big driver here?
Brandon.
There you go.
Are we good? Yep. There you go. All right. Good. Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Our fire department, Department of Fire Services, fiscal year 24 presentation. Just wanted to hit the 23 goals and objectives. We maintained our current level of service through last year's budget. We increased our efficiency through our new dispatch system, our brick system. It's getting the calls out about 20 to 30 seconds faster. Increased volunteer membership, and it's technically last calendar year. We took on 8 new volunteers. We're in the process of bringing them through the firefighter 1 training. So I'm pretty impressed with that. And we're in the process of implementing our current new records management system. We did have our second lowest fire loss year, which was just over 120,000 property loss, which was good. Last year I mentioned trying to use property saved. I wanted to be a little more positive. Not having fires, which is good, doesn't work out well for that, but based on the 44 the 44 incidents that we actually had damage or some type of event that the fire department truly made a difference for the resident, we saved $29 million of property based on electrical fire or a bad furnace that was starting to burn. There was no fire damage reported, but that was something that the fire department actually did hands-on and not just resetting a fire alarm, which is just as important, but this, we actually did something. So kind of started tracking that, and that worked out well. We over 100 public education events, which we really prided ourselves on doing that, getting out, because hopefully that's going to continue to reduce property loss. Not only in fires, but flooding or any type of other environmental emergency, because we're hitting at all hazards. So we're really teaching people on things that they should know about their home, where they live, and safety aspects of that. So we're continuing to hit those pub ed events so we can teach them. So a couple that we did, the farmers market, we set up on Elm Street a couple times over the summer, just to give fire stuff education to the kids and parents at the same time. We were at Holiday Stroll with Christmas safety at the beginning of December.
Great job with the truck.
Oh,
Lights.
unintended consequence, but it'll be there next year. So, yes, and we did launch a QR code this year that ties every one of these documents, is on the town website, and we're going to be putting them on the revamped newcanaanfire.com website, so people have access to all these different documents that we're putting out there for the new homeowner, lithium ion batteries, carbon monoxide and generator safety. All those documents can be found on the town website under educational resources through the QR code. I will admit, we swung and missed at a few goals from last year's budget when I went and looked back. But we are moving these into next year's. One was trying to do our active shooter or active assailant type training with the other organizations, PD and the EMS group. So that's one thing we still need to do as a town, working with emergency management and trying to get that squared away. We haven't gotten to the pre-plan of our commercial district, which kind of delay in we implemented the records management system, but we don't have all the data from our old system in there. So we still want to get out as the department and pre-plan the commercial district and again, public educate. And that's definitely going to help us with our ratings with the insurance services and knowing our properties. So that's going to start probably in the spring, hopefully, that we'll get to that, get it started. And unfortunately, the couple grants that I did apply for, we did not win those. So that is
Is that something you would work with Greg Riley?
we are now.
Okay,
yes.
good.
So he did. Yeah, we just put one in for this year through Factory Mutual, and he did a great job.
Good.
Asking, as a newspaper guy, he's asking questions,
Yeah.
to make sure we answer the questions they were asking. So hopefully that's going to be a win moving forward and actually writing it to what they're asking the questions for. So he's been a big help so far this year. So that's where we are. We're moving these objectives forward for FY24. And to add to those, we would like to start evaluating our operations against nationally recognized standards, looking at responses, looking at our water supplies, looking at all our training aspects, and really we really just look at ISO right now as far as the insurance, but looking at the Center of Excellence and NFPA to see where we can perfect what we're doing in that case. So that's one of our goals. Continue to capitalize on public educational opportunities as they arise, and really coming up with new ideas to infiltrate other sectors. One idea is getting into the school system prior to school to public educate the teachers on what they need to do. That's one thing the fire marshal and I are looking at. We're also looking at providing some pub ed to our restaurants downtown. So two things that are on the horizon to give them some heads up moving forward into into the busy season, so they can protect themselves and make sure that they don't have anything that could potentially start a fire or cause a hazard. Continue to implement our records management system. So it's a robust system where it's encompasses our staffing, our pre-planning, which is the big one. The inspection division's getting ready to go online in the next month or so. We just got some data uploaded, so that's a big one to transition over from that old system that we were using, Firehouse software. So that's a major target. And again, just trying to recapitalize on those grant fundings sources moving forward and seeing what what we could be eligible for, either for equipment or the public education field, which is a lot of community grants that are available out there for that. So those are our goals for FY24. Looking at our operating budget and the money, we're requesting 4.53173730 total, $4.5 million. It's an overall increase of 5.78%, which is as you see, 247,813 increase over the budget from FY23. The major drivers in that, we have our full-time salary increase by contract, which was 2.5%. Doesn't in the spreadsheet, you can see it didn't really go up that high coming from finance because there was last year we had an extra position on there based on a retirement that got carried over for the entire year. So that's why the percentage increase for the full-time salaries stayed at less than 1%, was based on that. But the raises are now figured in that without the increase of staffing. Our holiday time was recalculated. That's a large increase on the spreadsheet. So my predecessor was using an average over the years, and I think the COVID years kind of hurt the averages. I took the holiday time per contract. Every firefighter receives 13 holidays, and they're allowed to keep half of those, basically 6 holidays, in a bank. Looking at the 24 firefighters, all of them have a full bank, which means they have to use the 13 contracted holidays in the budget year. So this was each holiday at their rank was calculated at time and a half, was put into that number. And so was when the firefighters are working, the 6 firefighters working the 24-hour holiday, whether it's Christmas, Washington's birthday, 4th of July, there's a time and a half for those 6 firefighters working the 24. So those numbers were put in and recalculated, and that's accurate to the 312,000 requesting under the holiday pay based on their time and a half rates. So that's why the large increase in holiday pay. There's the only savings we can have if they choose per contract to sell them back. They could sell them back at a straight time rate, which very small percentage does that. I think only 12 holidays out of the entire year were sold back last calendar year.
Out of 20,
Yeah.
multiple.
So someone's, 2 people sold half their bank back. So that's where the large increase in holiday time was from, because I recalculated it based on only what they had to use. I didn't even account for the 6 that they have in their bank that they have the right to use also. Most of them keep that for retirement moving forward. Training time was increased. This is a couple different things, and I actually have a larger slide on that. So if I can just hold off on the training time, I'll come back to that with a full slide. Let me jump to it now and I'll come back to this. So training time, career staff receives 30 hours annually per contract that they can use at their whatever they choose to take. I accounted for that as average use. So that was the 740 hours of staff hours. So that's the average use of training time for the firefighters. Not all of them use it every year. They also all have 30 hours in their bank. A lot of them have saved that. So it's sitting in their bank that if more than likely won't use it if it hasn't been used already. Additional officer training, which is an OSHA and a insurance service ISO requirement. Doing quarterly staff meetings that incorporates 2.5 hours of officer time in that 4-hour block. So that's the 48 hours of staff hours there, and the 7,000 that I included in the training costs. Our special operations and regional training, that's our members that are 4 members assigned to the hazmat team and our 1 member that's assigned to the regional communications team. Based on their training hours and annually, it's 360. So there's almost 28,000 in training costs. The large one is how state of Connecticut has restructured their EMS recertification. As of right now, and from coming out of still coming out of COVID, they've all transitioned to online learning for a recertification. So what our vendor is proposed currently, and we're in a recertification process right now. It's once a month for 10 months. So that's a 4-hour training session online where they're watching on Zoom, and it comes to the firefighters that are not working, it's 740 hours. That recertification covers the shift that's working at no cost, but the other 18 members will be online from home attending the training. So it's only has to be delivered once every month at that time. So that's a large increase in training because of the way the state chose to use continuing education hours versus set classes that they would sit through. So something that, could be looked at in the future, but right now we're in a process that we started.
So part of this increase in training, which is about 200%,
Mhm.
is an unfunded mandate. Correct.
I would call it that.
Essentially.
Yes.
Because, I mean,
Yes, it could be. And
but not all of it. There's other components that in this is new training. Because I mean, this is a big increase, it's,
Correct. So, here's where
is this a must have, or would it be likely to
the
like
EMS
to have?
training is unfortunately currently a must have for the next next calendar year going into 24, because they're in the middle of a recertification process. So that EMS training would be a must have.
And that's a once in how many years?
It's a 2-year, the state changed it from a 3-year process to a 2-year process, which makes it almost continual. So, but when it resets when they recertify at the end of 24, when they finish this round, we could relook at how we do that. If we want to bring a vendor into the firehouse and do each shift, which I'll have an increase in the vendor cost in my training line versus the overtime.
Albie, is that why in 21 to 22, we had a pretty significant increase? Because of that EMS training recertification?
That is probably where it started.
Right.
Because when I came in the end of 21, they were already in the online process because of COVID. So that's when it transitioned somewhere in 2021, it transitioned to the online.
But I mean, this 516 number is in and of itself bigger than the training budgets for all prior years in and of itself.
Yes. And you can see in actual 22, we were at 74, and I would expect that we're going to be in over the 74 moving into the end of fiscal year 23 also, based on that.
Yeah, and I would suggest that when you go to Board of Finance, because they're going to look
Yeah.
at this number
No,
pretty
I
clearly,
agree.
I would just identify which of these amounts are really put upon you because of the state of Connecticut, its requirements for good or for
Definitely take
bad.
that suggestion. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think that's really
The one I did put in and increase the 40,000, the live fire training and the firefighter 1 program. That is, I'll call it discretionary. That's trying to incorporate our career staff with our volunteers, our company. I want to increase the number of opportunities they work together in live fire training, which is off-site from one time a year to quarterly. So they, they're learning and they're working together closer. So there's not as much of a disconnect when firefighters come together on a scene. So that was increased. And we also would like to run our own firefighter 1 program with the number of volunteers. Keeping it in-house is more beneficial for the volunteer to do it at our firehouse and using some of our acquired structures. And still going over to Darien Tower, but doing that in-house with our firefighters teaching it.
So that's,
that was-
so that's paid and volley.
Yeah, so the paid firefighters and volunteer instructors would provide the training at a, the volunteers would be doing it at no cost, but the career firefighters would be getting paid to teach when the volunteers, when the new volunteers come in. So that is a new cost in training that I put in there based on the number of volunteers that we're getting. It's probably more cost effective and better for the department to do it in-house with our members, working with each other. Going back, our callback, we have increased there. So the callback was increased. I looked at the number of times people are coming back, and we increased that to I think we brought it up to 5,000 for the submission. We're looking at an average of 15 incidents, 2 firefighters coming back. Again, the contract allows anyone that could come back for a callback, whether we have a fire or we go mutual aid somewhere, we have to restaff the firehouse. So that's the increase in callback there. And we're trying to base it on averages. And the required physicals, myself and HR are starting to relook at physicals to try to get them NFPA compliant. So we are making sure the new members coming in, whether career or volunteer, are meeting the minimum NFPA standards to be a firefighter. And then our annual physicals, making sure they're meeting our NFPA requirements to make sure people are healthy to actually do the job.
And I mean, again, that's a big increase, 239%.
Yeah.
What accounts for that in terms of is it the number, the quality of the physicals?
It's here's where we're working with HR. The problem is some people are using their private doctor and using their health insurance. So it's a benefit cost-wise to us, but per NFPA and OSHA, we are supposed to have a assigned doctor, physician, occupational health physician that does the physical and manages it. So an occupational health, like a Yale or Nuvance that has that. It's when you look at those standards, that's where.
So we're in non-compliance with
Technically,
NFPA.
it's non-compliant doing it. I don't want to say a doctor's not doing it correctly. They get the sheet that they're supposed to be doing, but it's a compliance issue with OSHA that we don't have the occupational health physician actually doing the physical and looking at the records. And yes, the OC health places are they're a little more costly, and they're not going through personal insurance. So that's where the increase is. I accounted for everybody going through the OC health at roughly $700 a physical when they do everything. Other large percentage increases, but only accounts for 9,000. Our educational incentives, members taking the career staff taking classes annually. We pay them a stipend in the contract, so those continue to slowly move up. Not many every year, but it does go up. And then you can see uniforms, some property repair things that went in there, looking for some additions in the firehouse. Uniforms just calculated out some increases in costs, and contractually there's things we have to provide every 5 years and at 10 years. So there's people that potentially could ask for a Class A uniform or winter jackets that add to the cost of uniforms. Re-put travel in the budget for additional training. So members have asked to go to some of our conferences across the country. Indianapolis does a conference, and there's the iChiefs conference in different locations. So people have asked to if we could start doing that, and that's usually we pay for a third of that. The volunteers will put some money toward that, and so will the association. They'll put money toward that to get the people enrolled and the travel costs. And food increased, my administrative assistant asked for this one because we get tasked with events that we don't really have a place to, for coffee and, pastries and stuff for like the 9/11 event and stuff like that. So we're stealing from other accounts to fund some of those events,
Hot dogs,
What's that?
hot dogs.
Hot dogs. Well, that's volunteers. So that's
Yes.
not us. So that's the company. But I can't take that away. But yeah, so putting that in there, and our dues subscriptions increased for our regional team by $500. So that's really a large increase in subscriptions. Any questions on operating that I missed, or things I might have that flag and you might miss?
I have none.
I'm good, Al. I mean, I
Go,
think you're
Kathy.
gonna have your hands full with BOF. But you've been around.
Done.
You rock.
No? All right.
None for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
So our capital plan, which is went up a little bit. I moved the replacement engine up 1 year in that. I'll talk about that in a second. But this is our spreadsheet of that, and I'll go through each one. So moving up the fire engine 2 replacement, which is 26 years old. Moved it up a year just based on the feedback we're getting from all the chiefs in Connecticut of the time it takes to complete the build of the truck. We're looking at a 24 to 30 month lead time, and prices have been going up exponentially as those months go on. So kind of wanted to move it up to get the approval to start the process. That way our vendors, we know what we're working with for funding, and our vendors know what we're working for funding to complete the project. Why engine 2 needs replacement? 26 years old. It doesn't meet our operations right now. What we're doing, it's based on how we're responding to fires and the way that we're operating. It's got a lot less water than we would like, and we want to get an apparatus with more water on it to support those initial operations on scene. And then because most of the fire service around us has transitioned to tanker shuttles, which means that we don't need the hose and the pump capacity that this current engine has. We're going to try to replace it with an apparatus that has more water on it. And less hose. That's kind of the theory on
But
it.
not a tanker shuttle.
What's that?
Not a tanker shuttle.
We don't want to call it a tanker, but it'll be part of a tanker shuttle because it'll still be able to operate as the pumping engine on scene. It just won't. It'll carry. We're looking at somewhere at a minimum 1,250 gallons versus this one's just under 500. So we want to get more water on wheels for how we operate. So. And the truck isn't a candidate for a refurbishment based on the weight capacities of it and some of the NFPA standards that we wouldn't be able to meet based on that. So that's why a new fire engine the replacement would be a better option for this one. And we put in for $1 million based on what we're getting back from the chiefs. It's going to be pretty close to that. Most of them are in that 900 and change currently coming into the budget year.
You got 1.5 though now, right?
What's that?
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Looking long. Yeah, it's 1. And the out year, just the ladder truck.
Oh, yes. So just projecting in the 5-year plan, the ladder truck would be based on that the 25-year life expectancy, which is kind of an industry standard. We're looking at in there for 1.5 for a new apparatus now. I think they're higher than that. I think our apparatus is going to be a refurbishment versus a new one. Looking forward, haven't looked into that yet, but based on what some of the products that are out there, it won't fit, and nothing's fitting in the firehouse right now with new. So So we're really keeping our fingers crossed for refurbishment on that apparatus because we need to keep the height of the apparatus. So no one's making that chassis anymore. That's a low profile. So that could be a stumbling block for us forward.
How often is the ladder truck used?
It's assigned on every alarm, whether it gets out, it's it probably runs out of our just under 1,200 calls. It's probably on a quarter of those assignments that it actually runs on.
Really?
250 times.
Wow.
Yeah, so it does get out, and the volunteers do get it out. We're limited on drivers right now, but they are getting the apparatus out. It runs on every carbon monoxide alarm that we have. So the good thing, it's not running emergency all the time. It's most for carbon monoxide, it's running non-emergency. So there's less wear and tear on it based on our
And
operation.
it's very low slung, so does it have problems getting around?
It actually, it doesn't have any issues with hills or anything in town, right? That,
It's long and it's low, but it's narrow.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, driveways, very difficult getting in driveways, but that apparatus you'd want to back in, which is how it's designed. So which
Right.
is good for a rear mount. So it does work for our residential very well. So they can 3-point turn it and back it in the driveway as needed. Takes a little while, but it'll get in there. Tri-band radios, that was what we went for the grant. Unfortunately, like I said, we didn't receive the grant. We had the part of the match in the 23 budget, which is still in capital, and requesting 25,000 for the to meet the minimum that we need for equipping the career staff with the tri-band radios for mutual aid purposes. So that's really the big thing, is that the career staff going into other towns, that tri-band radio for their safety and communicating with them, getting their direction on the way in is the real need for those tri-band radios. So it's kind of just finishing up that project that we were hoping for grant money. So that's where we are with that one. So we're looking for, based on the money, and I'm getting estimates now, 4 to 8 units to equip the on-duty staff and then the 2 chiefs to have that in case we have to go mutual aid for safety. Building improvements. So there's 2 lines in there. One's for the alarm room, one's for the meeting room. This is our current meeting room and trophy case. And you see a lot of wall space there on the picture. What we want to do is incorporate a shelving unit and for storage for training materials, and incorporate the company's trophy case in the middle, kind of highlighting that. And we also want to add 3 bunks. That's been a request from the fire company to have a place so when they do their duty nights or we're here for storms, they have a place to rest in the event of for the call. So many of them that do live on the outskirts of town do want to stay at the firehouse so they can make the calls on the initial assignment versus driving in from home, which would really benefit us on the response time. So that would be a very good option for us. So that's one of the capital requests, and there's 30,000 in for the meeting room. And that would be just a complete wall unit there. And the alarm room is building management had money from a couple of years ago. They redid the floor, repaint it. So they spruced up the alarm room. And what we need to do is purchase the furniture, the office furniture to go around that, and shelving to replace what was taken out, the dispatch console and so on. So that is the second request there for the alarm room. And that's 8,500 for the furniture.
I'll be just going back to PPE. That's significantly up.
Yes, and that's in my reoccurring, and PPE had a huge increase with manufacturing, both material and the manufacturing of it. So that's going up, and coming up in 2024, the career staff, their gear's coming to 10 years old. So I'm gonna have to buy more sets in 24 based on that their gear coming up on 10 years, which is again NFPA standard. So again, we're standard driven on that and not supposed to be using gear that's over 10 years old.
It's-
And OSHA's,
NFPA, makes a lot of sense, but what are the ramifications of not being 100% compliant with NFPA?
in the event of a injury or fatality, that they would look at that and put liability on us for not having the gear. In theory, their manufacturers are putting that NFPA is looking at the manufacturer. So the manufacturers look at their gear and say, well, 10 years this is where we want it. The thread starts to break down, the material starts to break down. So we don't have the thermal protection, so it could increase burns. So that's where the year is coming from. It's the manufacturers driving it to say, we don't trust our gear after 10 years.
So it's purely a safety issue and by definition, a potential liability issue.
Correct. Safety first, and absolutely OSHA's, they're looking at every set of gear and saying, it's 10 years, you have to get rid of it. So OSHA's doing it as a liability issue to get rid of it, but NFPA and the manufacturer set the standard that, hey, it's a safety issue that you have to get rid of it because our gear, it just might deteriorate. I did put in for an additional staff vehicle in the process. If the career assistant chief, which is funded for half a year, is interviewed and hired after January 1. So the process of getting the staff vehicle for that assistant chief to respond. So that is the 65,000 that we put in there for the staff vehicle. And again, on the assumption that as police department said, it takes a while to process that. So we did put it in there. And here, one other new request for capital that wasn't in my 5-year last year is the need for a water rescue equipment. I'll start with the right side, emergency management hurricane drill. We identified that we have a lot of areas for fast moving water and flood waters. We talked about a lot of events in that hurricane drill that we've had over the years here in New Canaan. And we definitely identified a limited boat capacity. I guess Highway has one that is available to us. So what'll incorporate into some of this, the need for training, and then just being prepared for the potential of the high water and the fast moving water. So we looked at that and said, all right, well, what do we need? We have to get equipment that covers all seasons. So our ice rescue equipment, which is not the best for use in fast moving water. So our plan consists of replacing the suits for ice water. Over this first year, we would get a couple suits, but this would be an ongoing project moving forward through our regular capital equipment request to replace suits moving forward for fast moving water. That'll also work for ice water. We also identified in this event the lack of protection for civilians. There's been incidents that people were stuck in cars in the Weed Street area a couple times. And we also had a kayak in a low head dam near the Silvermine River, that if the civilian is in the middle of the water, standing on top of the car, on top of a rock wall, we need to get them some protection as a flotation device. So we included flotation devices in there. This also is flotation devices for all services. So not only protects our firefighters that respond, who will be, off on the shore while the other firefighters are in the suits, it's going to help the EMS and PD folks that are on near the water also, that could slip and they would have the proper PPE. Right now, our work vest for ice water rescue isn't good for fast moving. So again, we're transitioning from that static on ice water to a fast moving environment.
Albie, where would you train for fast moving water?
They would they went upstate for the initial class, a couple of our members. But most of it can be done, talking to the 2 firefighters that went in our waters. For the tactics that have to happen, doesn't necessarily have to be severe fast moving water, but are coming off the dams during when the water's high. They can use those areas to do the training that all the firefighters would receive to operate in the suits in the water. So that's definitely a question I had for them, is do we really have fast moving water? And yes, and then we can use it in the where the water does start to increase, Silver Mine River they mentioned, so we can we can do the training there. And a lot of the tactics we can still do in Mill Pond and so on as we do our ice water.
I'll be, where will we keep the boat?
That's what I was gonna ask.
The boat's inflatable, so it's an inflatable boat, and it'll be
The rubber
probably
dinghy.
tied with our rescue company. So it's
It's a Zodiac, right? Like a
I
Zodiac.
don't want to say it's that brand, but yeah, it's similar to a
same.
Zodiac. It's technically it's called a banana boat. So it does have openings underneath. It doesn't have the flat bottom as a Zodiac does. It actually has openings in it for what they need to do for the fast water.
Good stuff.
And then my reoccurring cylinders, NFPA required, again, 15 years, and DOT required on that one also. So it's a constant replacement of our cylinders at roughly 8 to 10 a year. We're in the process of replacing them right now. So those are continuous. And again, PPE, I mentioned the increase in the manufacturing costs, the career staff coming up for replacement gear in 2024, and our increased volunteer membership as they complete Fire 1, they get measured for new gear. So anticipating them, passing Fire 1, we're going to need to equip them with the compliant gear to go to fight fires. We are using, the state has been giving us a reimbursement for responding to Route 15. So that's a little funding source that I'm using to purchase some of the volunteer gear right now, which is helping us offset some of that cost for the new members. Tools, equipment, our AEDs are coming to their end of their lifespan. So looking to replace those in the future with the tools and equipment request of 15,000. And we're also looking at replacing our 15-year-old rescue tools to battery operated. And that's what we're looking for in the FEMA grant for this year moving forward. So we're putting that grant package together with Greg for various rescue tools, which the extrication stuff will be in there. And then as always, we continue to try to do water supply improvements. We're working with Highway now, the fire marshal's working with Highway to find areas where they're going to pave, that if we can put our own cistern in a cul-de-sac or somewhere town property off the road, that we can set our own water supplies in there so we have access to them. It's a little slow. That's probably one of the goals that we did not also meet in 23 was getting our homeowners to put in draft sites for whatever reason, or even access their pools. So looking at it from a town front, so just looking at different direction to try to do it on our own property to do that. So that's an ongoing project with water supply. And that is our request from the fire service.
I see the fire marshals here. Do we have any report?
Anything you'd like to add, sir?
Okay. Also, I didn't see a fee memo for fire.
What's that?
I didn't see a fee memo. I know you don't have many fees. Is there a false alarm fee and stuff, or?
Oh, revenue stream?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, all ours goes through building, right? We don't get any direct fee. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why we have no. Right. That's okay. Our land use. Good. Any questions?
None here. Thank you. Hope
I
you-
didn't read your report yet. I see this came from you as chairman of the commission, as well as the
It's from
chief.
us.
It's from us.
Thank you. Is this on the website yet? Is this on the town website yet?
I'll have to ask Jill if she put it on the website, as of,
A lot of good information in here. So
Yeah.
thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief, for everything you do. It's a
Yeah.
great job.
Thank you both, guys. Appreciate it.
I suppose we take a 5-minute break. Yep. And move on.
Kevin, Nick, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Okay, we're back at 10:42, continuing, and
Okay,
now general government with Josh Kaufman.
thank you very much. So as there are several departments, I'll kind of not really speed through them, and you'll have the presentation up there. It should be on your tablets as well. Let me know if you have any questions.
Is Kathleen still on or not?
And so we're gonna start with the expenses first. That would be page 3. So the first selectman's budget is first. That's an increase of 1.64%. I also included at the top, you can see it's 1.64% budget to budget, but it's also a 0.73% budget versus the revised FY23 budget. Just kind of to incorporate any hirings that took place during FY23, just to give I think a slightly more accurate view of what the increase really is when you're
So I'm sorry, you're saying budget to revised budget, but
right.
not budget to actual.
Correct. Yeah,
That's-
we don't have actuals yet for 23. We have year to date.
Right.
So in the first selectman's budget, there are 2 notable increases. There's a $2,500 increase in the professional services / research and planning line. This is used for transcription services. 2 in the prior year for the WPCA and more expected in the next upcoming year. So this covers those costs. The second being the meals and entertainment line for an increase of 2,000. This really brings it closer to what the actuals have been over the past years. This pays for the 2 major employee events and employee recognition events and so on. There's a retirement or something like that. Any questions on the first selectmen's?
None here.
budgets? On to finance. So finance has an increase of 10.5% versus last year's budget, or a 4.5% if you're going off of the revised. What accounts for this is the 11% increase in full-time salary, which is the new position of grant writer. And if you kind of remove that from the equation, it really changes it to a 1.9% increase in the salaries.
So the total budget or the salaries? What's the total
For
budget with
the
the grant?
salary line, I believe.
What's the 10.51 without
That's
the grant writer?
total versus budget. The 10.5, that's, I believe, total.
Total budget.
Or you want to know what the total budget removing him?
Yeah,
That'll take a little bit. Sorry.
well,
Oh,
it's kind of like
it's in the budget for 82,
Yes.
so,
plus benefits and plus
and all that.
social
those
security, so you
categories.
kind of you back it out. And
It would be
Yeah.
113 increase versus a 30,000 increase. So you'd
Right.
reduce it by.
yeah, so that's
quite a
okay.
bit.
That's the significant item there.
And we had some offsets because we had new employees, so they're coming in at
Right.
a lower scale on the union, things like that.
So in addition to that is salaries part-time. This is the inclusion in our budget of the associate risk management position, which is Todd Sadler. Also moving to service contracts going up. This is just the increase in cost for Munis, the software, the accounting software that we use, which has taken a bit of an increase after the recent upgrade that we just finished in December. On to professional service audit is up 4.8%. These are kind of expected rate increases from our outside auditing firm relating to their staffing costs.
Are we budgeting for the internal audit? Are we budgeting for the internal audit?
75?
But we really haven't, we haven't used that in the past.
We haven't used it. We didn't do it last year.
Right.
Any questions on finance?
No.
On to the tax assessor. So the tax assessor is up 3.71%. That is mostly due to a $4,000-ish increase in the 401A line. This is just kind of bringing things to reflect what the actuals have been. An increase in their service contracts, which you'll also see in the tax collectors line. It's an addition.
Are Sebi and Earl going to come up for this? No?
No. Their budgets are pretty straightforward. It's a $4,900 increase for both the assessor and the collector for them to upgrade to the QDS cloud version, which will have some features that are beneficial to them and as well as.
It takes the pressure off our IT department for all the upgrades, MOUs, anything that needs to be done. It takes that, daily pressure off of pressure.
There's some minor increases to OS contract services.
I was going to say, is all the cost of the reval in the capitalized item?
So some of it is.
Some of it is here?
So those increases, contract services, equipment, rental, advertising, those all have to do with the reval.
Right.
There is an increase, which we'll get to later, in the cost of the reval capital item, just because of the expected cost of the total project.
Yeah.
Any questions on the assessor?
No.
So similarly on the tax collector, it's an increase of 4.8%. And these are really mainly due to that for 4,900 item, the service contract for QDS. Their budgets are so small that a $5,000 increase really bumps them up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Also is a 13% increase in part-time, which just represents a $1 an hour increase to their part-timer salary, since I don't think it's been raised in quite a bit, and a 13.33% increase to the postage line just because of their increased cost in printing, which is a lot of what they do. So,
All good.
any question on collector?
Nope.
All right. So on to legal. There's a 40% increase in legal. This is off of the 250,000 that was budgeted last year. We're budgeting 350,000 this year, which is a lot closer to kind of what we had traditionally been budgeting for.
Well, traditionally, 5 years ago, when I came into office, it was 355, I think. And we took it down, and then these 830Gs have caused some unanticipated legal expense. So we're bringing it back up.
Yeah. Any questions on legal?
Yeah, I mean, the question is that enough?
I think
Potentially.
it's hard to know, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's a good number, but.
Yeah.
Human resources. HR is up 2.5% over last year. This is due to, again, a couple small minor increases. The training and tuition reimbursement is 3,500 up. We have 2 employees who are currently working on advanced degrees, so that's what accounts for that. Training is up 1,000, which reflects the past year's increases in actuals, really just to be in line with those. Program meeting and expense is up 700. This line is used to support other kind of employee events like blood drives, healthy hearts, stress in the workplace. So there's just an increase in those to kind of make sure those programs get filled out.
So tuition reimbursement, is that for other departments that get billed into HR? Doesn't get billed to the department,
Correct.
as it does with police and
No, police and fire have their own, non-union and union town.
Any questions on HR? All right. To IT. IT has an 8% increase, which is made up by, there's a salaries full-time increase of about 5%. Just to put in there, a budget versus revised 23 budget is only an increase of 2.6%. Just to say, Sal DeLucia's promotion to IT project manager and a new hire during the past year have kind of pushed that up a bit. So I think it's closer to say it's really a 2.6% increase over where we currently are. In addition to this is a service contract increase of 7,000. And this is comprised of a 5,000 increase to Zoom costs. Since we use Zoom for everything pretty much, we are held hostage by that. And 2,000 increases in their existing contracts that are just that we already utilize.
If I could, just on the Zoom, so you know, we were paying it. It was going under a COVID code.
Right.
So it's no longer covered under COVID.
Yeah.
So it's coming out of that category where it was and being put into IT because it makes sense to reside in IT.
You still need it.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
So it's
point.
really a flip of where we're going from an expense standpoint.
Any questions on IT?
No.
Okay. To the town clerk, I'll skip that. And Claudia will cover that afterwards. So over to the registrar of voters. So the registrar is up 14%. Salaries part-time is up $14,000. FY 23 represented kind of a 6-month increase of their salary. Their salary, I think, increased on January 1st. And so it really only covered the last half of FY 23. So FY 24 is now the entire full rate covering their salary increases. So that explains the 14,000.
Also, they're anticipating these 6 tech. We have 5 or 6 voting locations now, and there's been a lot of increased costs caused by the state changing. So
Their canvassing has dropped 6,500. This is really just to reflect what the historic trends have been. Postage also is up 2,000, again reflecting the actuals of what they have been over the past several years. Supplies office. So this has raised, but you'll see a corresponding decrease in the town clerk's budget of 11,250, and it's because the registrar is taking the budget for ballots used for in-person voting.
Full ballots.
Poll ballots, that's the word. I was
they
looking
used to
for.
be all in town clerk, and now we moved some of it over. The poll ballots are in register.
Any questions on the register? Okay.
Nope.
So health, pension, OPEB, and insurance. So the health and security benefits as a whole is moving
I'm
up.
sorry, where is this on our
So
budget book?
that's a really good question. Page 8, it should be on the expenses. Yeah, it skipped down a little bit.
So,
Top of page 8. So
so Josh, just stop here for a moment.
sure,
So we're proposing no increase on the town side for health benefits,
yes, to keep it flat. Yes.
to keep it flat, which is kind of unusual. Cheryl? Very unusual for us to go to flat on health, because we've had very good experience with our self-insurance on our side compared to the Board of Education, which is up significantly. Kind of surprising given the different kind of populations, but that's a significant difference.
Right, so I believe we're keeping it flat to reflect a decrease in total members that the town is covering for those costs.
Right.
As well as potentially utilizing some of the internal service fund balance that has been building because of these, you know.
The Board of Finance will spend time on this to understand.
Sure.
Right, right.
Any other questions on health? So the town pension contribution is up about 100,000 to reflect the recent recalculation of the required funding. OPEB and GASB 45 increased to 300,000 due to the current state of the trust in regards to the recent market conditions. And the 401A Board of Ed contributions,
That's quite a swing. Just go back to that for a second.
the 300,000.
300,000.
I think that was at 0.
What was it? Yeah.
Last year was at 0.
The fund has, lost
At
value.
what percent are we at? Like 80%?
I think it's in the 80s.
Yeah.
Which is,
I don't remember.
like most other towns are down in the 30s and
Yeah,
40s.
it's
And
pretty-
so it's kind of amazing. We have to take that
That's pretty good.
charge, even though we're,
The way they spread the liability and now they are, thankfully, they're now putting in the smoothing in there. So that happened before, the decision to go smoothing happened before they lost the value. So they're able now to spread that loss in the market value rate.
okay, but we're still doing very well
Yes.
in terms of the overall percentage of OPEB. So I'd like to avoid that. It's kind of a long-term thing, but go ahead.
So the 401A Board of Ed contribution, that's currently a placeholder item until, I think it's kept flat over last year. No, it's up to 150,000, which is a 5% increase, just as a placeholder until the Board of Ed, which I think yesterday voted on their budget, so I could get a proper number in
Yep.
there.
You're on 401A?
That was the Board of, right, so it says 401A employer contributions, but that is for the Board of Ed. For the town, it's broken into each
People's,
department.
each department's budget. Okay, thank you. So this is just Board of Ed, non-certified teacher, non-certified personnel, or who are no longer eligible for the pension plan. Right, okay.
And there are no real noticeable or notable increases in the insurance liability. I think we just brought that up about a 2% increase over last year.
So we're doing well on workers' comp and
Yeah.
Any questions on those three?
no questions here.
On here.
So on to parking, bottom of page 8. There is a 1.6% increase in parking. And
You're like my wife, you always round up,
there's a
always round down.
1.5% increase in
round
parking.
down.
Which is really a 0.8% increase over the revised budget. So this is comprised of the salaries OT line getting a $7,000 increase. And this is really to facilitate coverage on Saturdays, which used to pull a parking officer off of their normal operating hours. And it's really kind of better to have the 2 parking officers during those normal operating hours when 2 officers are really needed, and then to have the overtime on Saturday being covered by that line. It's also the OS contract service line is dropping by 14,000. So this is an expense that coincides with how many parking tickets the town is issuing. So we pay our vendor a percentage or a fee for each ticket that we issue. And since ticketing has been trending downward because we have some great parkers in town, that line has been coming down, and it's kind of just to match the trend of where it's going. Any questions on parking expenses?
We talk about revenues at the same time?
Yeah, it's in page 22.
So we can do revenues now, or we can wait until we're done with debt service contingency and then we're going right to revenue.
Okay,
So next up is debt service contingencies and transfers. So the salary contingency line is up 113,000. That's just due to the upcoming town hall union contract negotiations. In there also is the COLA increases for non-union employees with the town. So we usually keep that at about 150,000 and then add the 113 or so on top of that. The transfer to the tax supported capital is kind of a working number that's, just coincides with what the tax capital request is. Right now it's at 1.8. I think it's really moving up to closer to 2 with the new Board of Ed budget that they, I think, are approving in the next couple of days. Last year we utilized bond premium to pay for a lot of these projects. So now we're just seeing a big increase to bring it back to.
but we have bond premium remaining that we could use for some of this. So the Board of Finance will probably.
So this number is traditionally, I think, around 1.7 to 2 million, and 1.8 is kind of right in the ballpark of that.
They ought to be lower on that. We got to figure out a way to get that lower.
Any questions on those or any other expenses?
None here,
Okay, so on to revenues.
which is where.
So finance revenues are page 21. And let's see. So finance is the highlights of finance really are the interest on investments. And I'm not sure if I changed this slide to reflect it, but the new number is expected to be 900,000. That's what we're budgeting for. It's probably 700,000 in your books. After speaking to the treasurer, we felt that just due to market conditions currently, I think 900,000 is a little more realistic of what we expect to get. The rental of property finance is just the addition of the Board of Ed rent at 220 Elm, is what we're expecting in there. And that's at 350,000 right now, an increase of 150,000.
I thought that was gonna be 380 or 4.
We have to change this one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The tax assessor has the state property rebate. That is, it's kind of a hard number to budget for. According to the assessor, that number could drop off at any moment. So we kind of try to budget for it conservatively with just the 5-year average that we're going off of has us down about 25,000, and more than that. That's great. Town clerk, I will skip.
Don't we have other grants coming in here? We have ECS.
So those just kept flat until we know what I don't think at the time we put this together.
But they will be coming.
Yeah.
This will be changing a bit
Yeah.
on the plus side.
It should
Hopefully.
if they move, yeah. Yeah, we gotta wait for his.
Well, we have a grant writer too, so these should be increasing. Will the grants go to the departments in our budgeting, or will they go to this general finance category?
If we get grants, we'll go to the
Grant fund.
Not our normal grants that come through the general fund, the ECS, and they would still come in here.
Not our normal grants,
So we have grants that the state automatically gives every year.
like TAR, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
The ECS, excess costs, things like that.
but TAR goes into the public works.
That which the public works.
Yeah.
And then if we apply for grant, if there's grants that Greg gets, they'll go into the grant.
And not into the general fund.
No. Because there's usually timing difference with them, so.
Right, okay.
So on to parking. So parking permits, we put up 20,000 from last year because of a potential 480 deferred permits that hopefully are planned on being reinstated. Parking meters, we're putting up 20,000, which is just closer to where historical data has been trending over the past few years. And I will skip town clerk. And are there any other questions on revenues?
Well, let's go back to parking for a second.
Sure.
So we have permits. And some of this is timing because now all the permits are being in one fiscal year and not carried over to 2.
Right.
So when you look at prior years, it's kind of confusing because that one.
It's tough. Yeah,
And also the business permits though also come in basically in 1 month in June.
I think they come in June. Yeah.
So that this number is improving. Wow, actually significantly in terms of we had the COVID years
Yeah, I think where we are now with parking, it's
normalized almost.
yeah.
Even though
I
people,
think so.
even though lots are not full, people are paying for permits
Right.
to be able to have a space when they need it.
I think that's hopefully what we're going to see in the FY23 actuals as the year goes on, that it'll look like a return back to kind of normalcy.
Okay, so that's parking. What were you going to go on to?
That's it for revenue. Skipping land use and town clerk.
Why do we have insurance liability? We get a rebate on the from Kerma? Is that where that dividend is reflected as revenue back? But I thought it was more like $100,000 and some odd thousand.
It ranges.
Every year it's different.
Oh, that's the member equity. Actually, that's not reflected yet because we don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is for that.
But that's another number that'll come in by the time.
Usually that's June.
Yeah, but again, we will have a number in there for the budget purposes. Ultimately,
Would you have a placeholder just to?
We don't have a
It
placeholder.
ranges significantly, right?
We've gone 20,000 to 125,000.
but I mean, if you average the last 3 years, I mean, you could plug a number in there. Well, the 50's 50. Right?
Okay. I can make that change. Any other revenue questions? So on to a very small capital projects list. For the tax assessor, there's the 2023 town-wide reval. In FY 23, we had.
I'm sorry, Josh, where are you again?
36.
Sorry, capital
Capital.
is,
Capital.
I guess, 35.
30, I
Sorry,
think it's
126. 126. Yes. It can be hard to follow. There's a lot of numbers on there.
126
126.
for tax assessor.
Yeah. So the assessor had 150,000 budgeted in FY 23 for the reval. And it was going to be 150, 150, but now it's going to be 150 and 215. We really just split the project in what we think is going to be half. But just due to the overall cost of the projects, it's just.
I don't understand this because I thought we were doing a computer update and not a bit. Did the contract change significantly, increased for the reval? You said 150, 150 would be 3.
So it was expected to be 150, 150, but the overall cost of the project turned out to be higher than what was expected.
Why is it higher?
Probably their manpower. We'll get the details then.
The IT budget for capital projects, they have just their kind of standard lines. IT hardware software, that is traditionally 80,000 recurring annually, but this year it's 130,000 to accommodate an increased cost from just Microsoft licenses that are kind of a one-time purchase that they need to make in order to stay properly up.
Is some of this cybersecurity or did we do that with ARPA funds?
So there is the last line, 40,000 for cybersecurity mitigations, which is a 40,000 recurring annually as well.
So that's kind of a new item.
Yeah, why didn't we have that before?
I think
Increased insurance requirements. The insurance company
Yeah, I
requires to
think
do
so.
things.
And also just alongside that is their WAN hardware software, 80,000, that's also recurring annually.
Right.
Any other capital questions?
I have none.
Okay, that's all I got. I'll turn it over to whoever wants to go first. Brian Platt stood up, so he gets the first go.
Thank you, guys.
Last shall be first. Thank you, Josh.
I would
Very welcome.
like to begin with revenue, if you don't mind.
Why don't you hang there and help us find pages? Since
So revenue for them is 22.
You there?
yes,
As you can see, our revenue is basically flat. As you know, with me historically, I'm always a little bit reluctant to change our projected revenue. If you look back over fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 22, we almost doubled our revenue. I don't see that as repeating itself. I preferably like to look over the last 5 years' revenue, throw out the high, throw out the low, work with the remaining 3, and that brings us right about to where we are at 850 for projected revenue. If we carry on this year as we did for our actual for 22, fiscal year 22, this would be a different conversation next year. But for now, I'd like to keep revenue flat.
we're not going to charge ourselves for the police department building project, but we're going to have to inspect.
Correct. I mean, it's still, obviously, it requires staff hours, but no, we don't typically charge ourselves fees.
Right.
Any questions about revenue?
Well, just a second here. So
You should have those fee memos as well.
why don't we take a second and talk about that as long as we're at fees, okay, revenues and fees. You probably haven't looked at this in a while because it was written back in you have the fee memo? Josh,
I wasn't proposing any change in my feed this year.
So I know that planning and zoning had, Sarah Carey, the planner. We had one proposed fee change for planning and zoning regarding interior renovations. It was just a $50 to $100 update depending on the scale of the project. Because before it was a flat fee regardless of the size of the renovation. So just if it's over 1,000 square feet, we're now upping it to $200, where before it was $150. And then if you're over 3,000 square feet for an interior renovation, we're upping it to $250. So it was $150, and we ran the numbers, and compared to calendar year 2022, if we had done that, it would have increased revenue by $1,300. So not significant, but we do have to spend more time on the larger scale projects.
Makes sense.
Otherwise, not a lot of fee.
Yep.
There's a lot of information, but no changes really. And what do you recall when the last time is that we changed some of these fees?
Oh, for speaking for Inland Wetlands, Kathleen Holland, I think we're about 2017. I've done an annual fee review consistently of all the municipalities in the area. And right now we're sticking with what we currently have as far as fees. Also, just on the revenues, the budget, it's actually, I'm about 50% on my collection. I think it's just
The year to date she's talking about for FY 23.
year to date. So the projection is staying on what we had projected it to do. And, you know, there's always a good time to revisit fees annually as things come up.
Well, we're required to by code selectmen are required to review all fees annually. So on the other hand, have you used this Westcog tool that they have a database of all fees for all the 17 towns?
I had trouble navigating that.
Did you have trouble navigating it? But because I mean, besides looking at where the levels are for other surrounding towns and cities, but we also gives you ideas about fees that we don't charge and other towns do.
There's two parts to the building permit fees.
Yeah.
There is the
Some of it's state mandated.
There is the valuation
Right.
of the permit, and then there's the multiplier. So our multiplier is near the highest. We don't want the distinction of being the highest fee. What we amended last year was the valuation of construction. The valuation of construction could be the actual estimated cost of construction minus any work that is not governed by or regulated by the code. For example, if we take out the landscaping of the cost of construction, we take out paint, millwork, floor finishes, tile, cabinets.
What percentage of a project? is
Right,
that?
back all those, that's a big percentage.
Yeah.
Take out the well and the septic because that's permitted separately by the health department. If we back out all of those soft costs,
40%.
we were using a number of $150 a square foot.
Mhm.
I know towns that actually never did that and still have not done that. And they just take whatever you put as your estimated cost of construction,
Hmm.
which to me is ridiculous. So if you come in and you say that I'm going to build a 6,000 square foot house, my estimated cost of construction is 400,000. Some towns would work with that number.
All right, but I would encourage us to look at that Westcog tool, figure out how to navigate it.
I did
Yeah.
navigate it
Yeah.
when you had mentioned at the department meeting. I'm glad they got that up and running because it saves time for us going and calling all the different
Exactly.
municipalities. So, and it does give you some ideas of other fees that perhaps in the wetlands could charge that maybe we're not thinking about.
Mhm.
One recently occurred to me, so I'll be coming back at some point with that. It'll be a small revenue generator. But to Brian's point, like landscaping, that actually would be covered potentially in the wetlands fee. So we would collect a fee if it's related to regulated activity. So there's no sense in building can't charge for that anyway, but potentially in the wetlands can. And certainly health department collects substantial fees on all their code related things with wells and septic. So I think we're covered pretty well in the fee department for customers.
I found that useful for the multiplier where we are $75 for the first 1,000 of project value, $10 per 1,000 thereafter. I found the Westcog tool useful for that, but without knowing the valuation scale, one doesn't really help me without the other. And that's where I don't think Westcog really put together a comprehensive list of municipalities' valuation.
Right. Okay. And then the online permitting will address a lot of this too, allow people to charge
That's the other thing I was going to mention. I know Jen was going to do, maybe she did this morning. I missed her presentation, but the OpenGov, I think, is currently the system that we're looking at now. Sarah and I are actually going to be going down to Darien.
Jen mentioned that. Yeah, she did.
Check out their system. Oh, she mentioned already. So getting those fees into the system. And I know Ann and Josh might be excited about the system as well. I hope if we can.
I think we're going to Ridgefield on Monday.
Oh, terrific. So if we could tie all this
Road
together,
trip.
revenues would come in faster.
I mean, there's a lot of manual work that goes into just how these things are booked on the accounting side. So anything that talks to Munis makes everyone's lives
Yeah.
easier.
And that's where, Municity promised us.
Mu-
online, so
Municity
they-
promised a bridge,
and they
building a
never
bridge to
delivered.
Munis, and they never
they
delivered
never
on that.
delivered, so that's why we're considering changing. It's about time we do, so. Okay, good. Anything else on fees? Go back to revenue.
Anything else on revenue?
Are we done with revenue?
Revenue's flat.
Could be a little more positive, but your
Well, when I
budget,
say flat, I mean projected revenue is flat.
right.
I mean, we're on track. I just did my quarterly report for the state.
Right.
And for the last quarter,
Do any of these fees split with the state, or these are all local? These are all local fees. No.
we pay a small percentage back to the state. So we were over 343,000 for the last quarter of calendar year 22. So we're on track to be well over our projected revenue. So don't say that it's flat. Our
Right.
projected is
Right.
flat.
Right.
But we're going to be probably close to, or maybe even surpass where we were last year, which was 300,000 over projected.
Right.
But again, if I see that for another year, then this conversation would be different. But right now, I'm a little bit reluctant to change our projected revenue. I just don't see where we've been for the last 2 years as sustainable.
Right, especially on the,
With the interest rates going up, materials
Potential
prices
recession. I
are
think
at
it's smart. I think it's smart.
record high material prices, and I just don't see it as sustainable.
Yeah, record high material.
okay, where does that bring us? It's John, land use expenses now?
7.
%7.29%.
And that is, for the most part, in my opinion, self-explanatory. The biggest drivers in the increase was the additional staff of an assistant town planner whom we had hired, and a month or so in, he had resigned and taken another position elsewhere. That number is probably in flux right now. And as you know, Lynn had resigned as well. I don't know that that's going to be for Sarah to probably spend a little bit more time there and figure out what she wants to do with staffing. And I don't know this, if you have answers to that now.
So as far as the training for is this training that's $25,000 increase?
Professional services.
Professional services.
I can.
That's for the POCD.
Right, okay,
Mm,
That was
got
what
it.
the increase was.
right. So, and did we land on whether we're gonna have one consultant or two consultants? Because Glenn Shelder may be retiring and we want to sort of use Glenn probably, but also,
I think Glenn reduced his business to a one-man band over the past few years.
right. Anything else here? It's
It's POCD.
a question.
One other thing that was slightly increased, and we might look at it again for next year, there's a new statute that requires all planning and zoning members to have training.
Training.
So there may be some costs in that regard, right?
Will that be like registrar training where they do it online with a, you know?
I don't know yet. I think they're still sort of
Yeah.
rolling out the
Yes.
program a little bit. We do, I've always had a line, training commissioners. I force my people to go get, not force them, but there's a lot of training opportunities. Some of it's virtual, some very reasonably cost. But right now, I think we're good in that we have 1,500 in that. Hopefully, we'll have 1,500 in that bucket. So that would be good to at least facilitate planning and zoning getting up to speed with any training expenses that they may have.
I had heard that there was talk on a state level about making that a funded mandate and built-in state fees that would fund those programs.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to happen. So for example, my license requires 30 hours a year of continuing education, but the state provides that for free. Well, not free. That's part of what we pay back to them quarterly.
Right.
Which is a very small percentage, but at least they built it into the permit fees. So it ends up being a funded mandate.
Any further questions about the expense side? On land use?
Not here.
I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Where do we go now, Josh?
Town clerk.
Josh, did you want this back?
Morning, Claudia.
You look forward at some point.
We got copies.
I have a question for Claudia before you start. What percentage of the conveyance fee goes to the state and what portion do we keep?
There are different formulas.
Different formulas.
But I will say, can start out, I guess we're gonna be talking about revenues first. That last year we sent, we earned $2.6 million.
For the town.
And almost 10 million for the state.
People have been using the figure 12 million that New Canaan sent the year before, but that was an unusual year. What's our historic level of sending money to the state? Because
Or to the state, 4, 5, 6,
Right.
somewhere, and then all of a sudden it jumped to the 12 million. Then it came back. That's 9 million, but we also collect and earn about 25. Oh, thank you. Sure. We also earn about $268,000 in services and fees that we collect for the state. So we send that to them too. So I'm lumping it all together.
oh, okay. But people have been using, like at Westcott, we talked about this, and Greenwich sent $50 million. And when we sent 12,
Yeah.
Greenwich sent 50 million from the conveyance fee because of the huge transfer of houses
And we're a little low now. It just depends on the housing market. The prices of houses have gone up, so conveyance will stay somewhat high. I'm estimating. Well, okay, for the town, so revenues for the town, I'm always conservative about this. And so 1.3 million. In 22, we did 2.3, 21, 2.8. I just don't.
what page are we on for the revenues for?
So we are on revenue for town clerk 21.
So one at 20 was 1.1, but that's big COVID year.
Right.
So 1.3 is definitely conservative.
I am conservative, and the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance usually raises it. You are welcome to do the same. And I think that's probably obviously that's the biggest reduction in revenues.
That's not saying that you should go to 2, because I think this is going to be a more difficult year than last year. And
I think so
but
too.
there may be a middle ground there that
Um,
there was 1.6 or 1.7. I don't know. But
I'd be comfortable with 1.5, 1.6.
yeah.
1.15 or 1.6.
It's your call.
Well, again, that's the purpose of this exercise, because we go through a thought process as to whether some of the assumptions have changed, like from October to now, we have a different mind frame as to where this
That's
market
right.
is.
So
Why don't we go?
I actually think we need to be conservative because most people are saying we're going into a recession, and there's very few houses on the market. So
Right.
I think 1.5 is good.
And I also, in copier revenue, I wanted to make another change, if that's all right.
Sure.
I'd like to bring that up to 15,000 from 10. And also on miscellaneous income, town clerk, from just 1,000 to 1,300.
So copier,
1,300, sorry, 1,300.
copier was 15,000, you said?
No, it was 1,000, and I would like to raise it to 1,300.
Sure.
Copier.
The one you said before.
A miscellaneous income, I'm sorry. Oh, the one I said before, it was 10,000. I wanted to raise it to 15,000.
And copier is up 300 more, you said?
Correct.
Gotcha.
So,
remind me why we have a dog fund.
pardon me?
Remind me why we have a dog fund. I'm never clear as to why we.
It's a state program. It's required of every town that we have a dog fund.
Where does the money go?
Well, the town clerk gets to keep $1 for every license we issue, which are about 3,000. The majority of it goes to the state.
But where does the dog fund dollar go?
The dog fund money stays in a separate fund.
To be spent
And
how?
then once a year, we pay the state for all of the
Their
licenses.
portion.
Yeah.
But then where does the remainder go? Every year we approve the dog fund as part of the budget process. And I never understand why we're approving some ridiculous amount for something that, why, So we have to segregate it because it's state money.
Yes,
That goes
and we
back.
pay them and then we keep part of it. I think like $2 goes to operations of the dog pound or the animal control facility.
That's what I was thinking.
We pay for paper, I think uniforms, for that portion of it.
Hmm.
On the town clerk portion, we pay for the actual licensing of the dogs in terms of paper, postage,
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
Not a lot of money, but on the other hand, it's never been clear why it's a separate fund.
Like 65,000-70,000 in there right now.
Right.
Is the balance.
Has that grown over time?
Not really, I don't think.
This was kind of weird.
Can you use that, Claudia, for the dog license? Staff?
Hmm?
Can you use that towards the dog license? Staff?
According to the statute, no. No,
What can you use it for?
would be nice.
What can you use it for?
They're very specific things. You can use it for actually animal control salaries. You can use it for, as I say, uniforms, training, I believe, paper, licensing,
Infrastructure,
actual licenses.
infrastructure.
You do repairs on the mobile.
Repairs on, yes, on animal control facilities, yes.
But not construction of. Not construction of it.
No, but it can also be used for medical for the dogs.
So the 10,000 for the police department's fence around could come out of here.
Hmm.
They're putting a fence around the,
Oh, that would be reasonable, I would think.
yeah, sometimes we find money that could fund some of these things. Like we did with parking lots yesterday, so. Okay,
Okay. Any questions on revenues?
None here.
Okay. So then we go to expenditures. We're up, proposing 4.53%. And
so the ballots have been reduced to go to registrar.
we have reduced the ballots. I actually made as many cuts as I possibly could through this because this year we are proposing a change in staffing, and for the past many decades, we've operated with 2 full-time and 3 part-time individuals. And recently I found myself down 2, and that became very difficult. And we realized that it would make sense to merge 2 of the part-time positions
Sure.
into 1 full-time, leaving us with 3 full-time going forward and only 1 part-time, not including election staff. And in doing that, that's we also, and also to accomplish that, we reduced our part-time staff from 68,000 down to 30. And that would be for the remaining 1 part-time person and election staff. We reduced overtime pay for the staff because we'll be better staffed. And anyway, I think it really does make sense. It will offer some stability to the department. And I also always have to remind people we are 5 or 6 departments wrapped into 1. So we handle land records, we handle vital statistics, we handle the whole election process, not including what the registrars do. Records management is another whole department, business services. So we have a lot of things going on, and it takes manpower to manage all that. So that's what my proposal was. And just having that extra person or that the merging those 2, I think it will also be helpful. I always like to say that we are the switchboard of town hall, and just answering the phones alone is like an all-day process. So I think this makes sense, and I hope you'll approve it.
Well, we're going to move it on to the Board of Finance. They'll probably approve it too, so. Any questions?
No.
All right, thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
Where does that bring us to?
That's it for general gov.
Right on 11:30.
Are we done? Are we done?
Get
No,
Lisa. Lisa.
one more thing.
Oh, one more. Wait a minute. He said one more thing.
Just want to give you the update on the assessor, your question, because I just asked Sebby real quick. So when himself and Linda were working out last year's budget, 300,000 was the estimate they did for the area revaluations, because it's a full revaluation. Last time we did one was 10 years ago. So it's trying to estimate.
No, no,
what
we
the-
did. I thought
5 years was this last time we did
five,
it. was
five
it-
years was in full. Everything.
No, he said 5 year was this last one was a statistical. The
Was
last
it?
one we did as a full revaluation, which is every 10 years.
Ah.
So it was hard to estimate. He was trying to judge the area towns to see what they were a year plus ago and what they were. So that's why they came up with 300,000. And then when you really went out to get the revaluation firm, it came in higher. A lot of it was called manpower cost, because that's an issue.
I
We're
thought-
seeing that across the board with all the.
I thought it was just the opposite. I thought
budgets.
we were doing a statistical update, but this is the 10 year.
Yeah, this is the full 10 year, he said.
Thank you, Josh. Okay. Oh, Lisa's here. I
Yeah,
didn't
she's
see you.
been here for 40 minutes. Hey,
Morning. We're right on schedule almost.
Nice to see you both.
good to see
Exciting,
you.
exciting to see that building
Exciting.
being occupied.
Except Ellen's got to clean the outside of her office because I think a bird
Yeah, I don't know, might have been.
was
mud.
nasty to it.
I think there's there've been landscapers out there. Amazingly, it's so warm.
Yeah,
All of that corner's been landscaped
I
in the
know.
last- in the last week.
Hmm.
So that's pretty exciting.
good for the new
When
grass.
have we reopened Maple Street? When are we reopening Maple Street?
I know Turner's in discussion with Tiger about that soon.
No, we've got no complaints about it. Maybe we ought to keep it just for one way for the library. Would make some sense.
All right, well, thank you. Here again. Ninth year. I'm coming. to
Oh,
you.
9th year. Congratulations.
This 10th year, one of them. Anyway, before we get started, I think the thing I just wanted to point out that you both know is that this is a budget for an operation that is all new.
Sure.
And so whereas typically we have a lot of history to look at, our history is less helpful than it once was. Got really good data. We've been working on, projections for several years on what this would look like. And the challenge is, of course, we're here in January.
Have you projected your electric bill? People just got their bills for January
course,
and they're
yeah.
astounded. Yeah.
We're currently electrifying 2 buildings, so
Right.
yeah. We always work to try to get the best rates we can, and lock in when we can, changing at intervals to do that. We've always.
The
been
town
doing-
is locked in through December. Have you?
We've got new rates for January. We locked in early.
Right.
Before the changes. So, hopefully,
What's your estimated opening date?
well, so that's what I was gonna say. So this budget will start with July 1st. And we're not yet open in there. So I'm gonna have I don't have a lot of data, but we're looking at opening sometime by mid-February. I'm in constant communication with the team at Turner. The tension is obviously, we want to open as soon as possible. But I can't open with construction people still doing things. So trying to get to the stage where on balance, even if there's a few things left to do, we can just rope off certain areas. We, as you know, have had very few challenges with supply chain.
Right.
Interestingly, they're all coming right now at the end.
Really?
But of no particular consequence.
Is the
for
kitchen,
opening.
is the kitchen,
One piece in the kitchen still to come. Everything else is there. It's all being built. Actually, the ceiling tiles around the place, there's a few ceiling tiles in the kitchen and teen library and children's library. Of no consequence for opening. We'll just, close when they come in, close those sections off, get people up there and do that. The built-in shelving, which is mainly in the main concourse area, is delayed. But the main shelving, which is all metal, has all been installed, and my team are have been for 1 week already in carrying all the books across and getting them on the shelves. So that's all moving to plan. So that's pretty critical. If that hadn't been ready, that would have been a problem, but it isn't.
Do you have a temporary CO yet? Or,
We do.
okay, so you're,
Yeah, we've had one for a week.
Hmm.
So that's good. So anyway, so this is a budget for the new library. And of course, a year from now, we will have had 6 months worth of, well, we would have had almost a year's worth of data. So let's get going.
you no longer have a major maintenance line.
Yeah. So the new library, which is just absolutely so exciting to see coming to life, and the input I am getting from all sorts of people around town, a lot of people I have never met, who are communicating with us to say how excited they are and how happy they are that this is going ahead.
Is that boosting fundraising at this level
So, well, we have 2 different levels of fundraising going on. We've got operating costs, which we're ongoing right now. And yes, we are still having conversations with donors. Yeah.
I expect that will tail off after the ribbon cutting, as sometimes these things do, just because
Yeah.
people think, oh, it's done.
Hopefully not,
Yeah.
because we'll have well, we're still having conversations with people that we met early on who now are seeing a full project rather than a vision, and who are ready to commit. So there's that. People that we haven't met before, who've moved to town recently, who we're having conversations with. And then we'll have an entire campaign for the green that will launch later this year. So I don't think it'll tail off. I think we'll just, we'll keep going until we're finished.
Is there separate fundraising for the legacy building move?
Yeah, there will have to be.
And you're looking to fund to what level?
So the move, just to be clear, the move is only about 10% of the cost of the legacy project.
Right.
So that all should move ahead in April.
So that could be 250, 300,000.
It's about 300 to 350. Moving. But there's a lot that has to happen before the abatement has to happen. The demolition of the rest of the building has to happen. There are a lot of things that have to happen before that actually moves. So
When will that start?
February 1st, we'll start abatement. So remarkably, I think these images, which are renderings that you're seeing on the screen, are exactly what it looks like. I think maybe everyone thought these were representative or sort of indicative, but they're literally what it's starting to look like. And so everyone who saw those videos over time and those images over the last few years will feel both, I think, joy and excitement, but also familiarity. Like, yeah, this is what they said it would look like. It's what it looks like. It's quite amazing. So important that the central location that we have with the library, both that geographic centrality in the middle of town, but also our center in New Canaan society is such an important bonus for this community, that we are able to be such a lever for so many other organizations. Being an anchor, being open 65 hours a week right in the middle of town, driving business to other businesses, being a partner with every nonprofit in town and so many others is all such an important, they're all such important things that this library will enable. And I think the impacts will be seen throughout the community. And of course, core business, learning and cultural appreciation. So before we get to the budgets, just a little bit more on the new building, because really the new building changes everything about this budget. It is a larger building. It's 4,000 square feet larger, and yet built to be very efficient and sustainable. So some of the things that we're anticipating in the new building, the larger fit for purpose children's library, the green tutoring area, the spaces for teens and tweens, so much really well-designed space for remote workers. workspace for about 20 people, the business center, the meeting rooms, the cafe, the outdoor terraces. You both know we work a lot with the entire nonprofit community. So we have more spaces for them, more places for them to have their meetings, and we continue to work on strengthening and growing all of our partnerships and collaborations. Same with local businesses. And in fact, we have a donor preview event on the 4th. And we've suggested to everyone coming to that they book now at one of the local restaurants who have agreed to do some sort of special in collaboration with us. And that's how we mean to continue leveraging any big event that we do with local businesses, especially the hospitality sector, but not
Are
exclusively.
you doing that through the chamber or are you doing that direct outreach?
So we just reached out to all the,
Uh-huh.
we work with the chamber all the time,
Yeah.
but we just reached out to all the restaurants and said, you know, we'll suggest that people go after the event to have dinner.
Yeah.
Can you do some sort of signature cocktail or 10% or whatever? And quite a lot of them came back and said yes. So we've sent that out to all the people that have RSVP'd. So I think the main point of this slide is just to say, we come here every year asking for a grant. Of course we do, but we work really hard to make sure that we are raising all the funds that we can and doing everything we can to make sure that we're as well resourced as we can be. And it's not just coming to town to ask for money, but in everything we do, we are trying to make sure that we are really well resourced and putting all of our energies into backing ourselves. So thinking about income, philanthropy, obviously second to the town in how we get funds to do the job. Last year, we got $812,000, almost $813,000. So one of our highest years, if not the highest year ever. And that was during a construction period when it was difficult to use the library. And while we were fully fundraising for the capital campaign as well. This year.
How much of that is the annual appeal and how much of that is the literary luncheon?
It's about, I can look up exactly, but it's about 250 literary luncheon. That's gross. And the rest is annual fund. So it's about 25.75. So this year we're a bit behind. We're aiming for 775. We're a bit behind for a variety of reasons. We're trying to stay out of our own way on the capital campaign. So that meant we compressed annual fund into the end of the year. Also, we have had some turnover, as everybody in the world has had turnover, but we've had turnover in this department. So we lost pretty much the entire development team in springtime. We lost 3 full-time staff. We were able to recruit a part-time person to do the database management. So that's managing the flow of gifts. You can imagine we get a lot of gifts. Every one of them has to be logged, registered, thanked, and banked. And then of course we have multiple campaigns, capital campaign, the annual fund. So we got that person left in March and we weren't able to replace until September. Our director of development left us in about April, moved to Florida. We had a librarian on the team who stepped in for about 6 months, but she's now going as well. And we had a third person who helped in that team who we have not been able to successfully recruit any replacement for. So we are working on that, trying to figure out how to get people back in place for this. But as you know, the labor market right now is really challenging. Ellen's still managing everything about the capital campaign, and she will take on all of this along with me, trying to get people back in those roles, because as you can see, 775 minus 471, that's operating that we need to get between now and June, along with the capital campaign. And then we've pushed it up a little bit for 2024. We continue to be well ahead of all of our peers on fundraising. That's dollars. So it's
Even Greenwich,
yes.
gross dollars?
gross dollars.
Amazing, because they have an endowment too.
Yes, yeah, so does Darien, so does Ridgefield.
Hmm.
A lot of them have endowments. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Other revenue, that first line, library generated revenue, has been very low over the past couple of years because of COVID. So this is things like fines on books, room rentals, selling used books, et cetera, et cetera. We expect that to go up considerably with this budget. We've been, refining those projections over the last few years, room rentals, leases, various other items. The state continues to just slowly decline. What we may see, however, and it's hard to know until we get, a year from now, we may see that state number go up because it is based partly on the use of the book borrowing, specifically real book borrowing by people from out of town, other Connecticut residents. So it's sort of a compensation, if you will, for people borrowing our books. Connecticut has had for about 30 years a system whereby if you have a library card in any town in Connecticut, you can borrow books from any other library. And that factors into this complex algorithm. The state has, say, a pool of money to give to libraries. How they decide who gets what is this complex set of this complex math. And it's down to how often people from New Canaan borrow elsewhere and how often people from other towns borrow our
So
books.
you think that there'll be an uptick in the out of towners coming to a brand spanking new library
I
to
suspect so.
borrow a
And,
book
and this is the
get,
drain, right? Which is why they give us the money.
Right.
Right. And we always put it all back into physical collections.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the other thing will be that New Canaanites who've been using Darien Library for the last 10 years may start to use their home library again.
on the rentals and leases, what is your, dream scenario? I know you've got a placeholder of 30,000. Opposed to, last year, this year, 12.5, which is the existing bill. I don't even know what the actual is on that, but is it $50,000? Is it 75,000?
Eventually?
Yeah,
Again, I really want to hold back on making
Yeah.
any aggressive projections until we get a year under our belt and see what that looks like.
so, but the panoply of options does that include the lease for the
Cafe.
food vendor?
Yep.
And then the rooms
And then room bookings, right? So we think there's a pretty big appetite for
Yeah.
for-profit,
and events like
but well, that doesn't come under here. So events would,
doesn't
unless somebody wanted to book our space for an event
Like
and then just pay rent.
retirement party or something like that.
Right, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's gonna be moderated by us doing our job for the community, right? So we can't be renting out our spaces all day, every day, because then we can't actually do what we're there to do. But I think that's a small moderating factor because I think we just will make available when we're not using it, all those spaces. And what's yet to be seen, but we hear a lot of appetite for, are the for-profit businesses who want to use that conference room for sort of full day meetings, retreats, that sort of thing.
So like a hedge fund that comes in.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal space.
Yeah.
So but I want to hold back on making
Yeah.
any more aggressive projections than, already that's double this year, what we're projecting for next year, but this year's been a low year. So, it could go higher.
That's interesting about, we have 1,000 condominiums in New Canaan, and my guess is 250 or 300 are Darien people who moved to New Canaan. My complex alone has 30% of the is from Darien, and they tend to go back to Darien for their church and for their club and for their library. That may change.
I suspect so, because,
Right.
Back to my slides,
Yeah.
my preamble slides, the role that the library will have in growing community, a sense of community.
Right.
There's so many parts to that, but at its most basic level, just running into your neighbors in the library when you're there picking up books or dropping something off or taking a child or attending a program.
It's like the transfer station, only nicer.
Gosh, Nick, I hope it's a lot nicer.
Yeah, but you do see everybody at the transfer station.
Is Darien the library is the most circulation? Remember when you told us about,
So there's various ways of looking at this, per capita versus total number of books.
Right.
And yeah, they're high on both.
Right.
Yep,
Hmm.
yep.
And where do we rank next to them?
Top 5.
Okay.
Again, I'm not gonna use any
And we have this,
heuristic projections.
we have this
here, but maybe we'll
automated,
have something to really celebrate next year.
is the automated book thing installed and gonna,
It's installed. In fact, a technician is there working on it today. We had booked it in over 6 months ago. These people are very busy, so.
that built in the United States or in Europe? I thought Darian's came.
Minnesota.
Okay.
That's United States.
Yeah. Do I know where every component part comes from? I
Mm.
don't. But no, the company's based in Minnesota. They've been doing it for about 30 years. So, yeah. And then, okay, so what our ask this year from the town, 2683,880. And I think you've got it there on your,
4.7.
yep. So your budget that you've got printed out has a mistake. The first column says 2023 audited. That should say 2022 audited. So when we look at sort of external factors and try to get context for that grant, as we looked at last year, sort of just looking at it compared to 2019 real dollars, using that as a base year 0, we are still running, in fact, we're further away in 2024 from CPI than we were 2 years ago. So I don't think that this is, I'm hopeful that you don't think this is particularly aggressive. We are just trying to keep pace with, where our dollars were getting us a few years back.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we had tried to start years ago, and you may recall, you came to us and you said, there's a compensation gap between the Canaan Library and competitors, for lack of a better term. And I think we had kind of doubled down to try and get that gap
And we've
closed.
moved closer.
Closer.
We've moved closer. Yeah, that was 2018 when we talked about that. And I proposed sort of a plan to help get us there.
This probably doesn't get much
We're
closer
still
based
not,
upon
we're
the
still not there, but,
CPI.
and that was specifically about salaries. And so we've been trying to just work as smart as we can with everything in our budget. Whereas this is about just CPI generally and the whole budget.
Right.
And I'm sure this is not anything that's different than what you're seeing.
You mentioned staffing problems at the development level. Are there staffing problems elsewhere that you're
Yes.
seeing?
It's recruitment. We've just recruited 2 phenomenal, talented people to come. They'll be starting as we open the new building, 2 librarians. One really well experienced to come in and be head of our reference and instruction team, and another woman to come be our teen librarian. That was an internal promotion. We had a retirement. We saw a lot of retirements during the COVID years.
Yeah.
That's been the primary, not the exclusive, but the primary driver here has been retirements, where we've then been able to promote from within, which is wonderful. And then it's been backfilling there.
I mean, I would think that the new library is an inducement because it's just a more meaningful work environment. I would think.
Definitely be. I think, the 2 people we've just hired are definitely excited to come and work with us in this space. And I suspect that will increase. Once this is finished and we can sort of prove the concept, I think, it won't hurt recruitment. We have another professional librarian recruitment ongoing right now, and then some paraprofessional roles as well. So hopefully, and we'll be doing some local, we always recruit locally, but we don't often find librarians locally. But for paraprofessionals, we do. And so I'm hopeful of recruiting some local
That's great.
people and maybe
That's
even
great.
some high schoolers for some of the shelving jobs. So again, just some comps just to, so how we compare to our peers when it comes to the grant as a percentage of our total income. How we compare to our peers the town grant on a per capita basis. And the town grant as a percentage of municipal funds altogether, total municipal revenue. So looking at it from a different point of view, total cost to the town.
Whose revenues? The town's revenues versus our expenses?
Town's revenue. Library grant as a percentage of town's revenue. So if there was a pie of town revenue and we
Most of which is taxes, but real estate taxes, but.
correct.
on the other-
So that's reported to the state, and this comes back to me from the state where they look at,
Oh, so this is actually state figures that come.
oh, sure.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And you're saying that some of those towns also have endowments, those libraries have endowments, which is not picked up by this.
That's right. So that's picked up on this is just
Just
of
town money,
town's
town
revenue,
money.
How much of town's total pool is coming to the library on a comparable basis. This one is showing, this is the one where, okay, what gets you to 100? Well, in our case, it's 23% philanthropy, 1% state, and then a few other bits and pieces. Whereas in the case of, say, Greenwich, I'm not sure what the number is, but a much bigger, a percentage of that is endowment. Darien, a percentage of that is endowment. That gets you from this number to.
Okay, so part of that is endowment.
But this over here
Yeah.
has nothing to do with
Okay.
endowment. This is just what the library receives from the town compared to the
And
town,
those are public-private partnerships too.
all of them.
Oh, yeah.
So all of our reference group have the same, they're all association libraries as opposed to
Structure.
municipal libraries.
Yep.
What's different is that Greenwich, for example, their employees are actually, their administration and leadership are employed by the library association, but their line staff are employed by the town. So that's a different model. And if we think about proximity to town, arm's length, Darien and New Canaan are furthest from town in terms of finances and other things. Westport and Greenwich are closer to town. And then, what's in the budget? Number one, largest thing is obviously compensation. And again, looking at CPI, looking at from, using again 19 as the index year, we're tracking along.
So we did increase it in 18, 19
We did.
and get close, and then we kind of fell off
Fell
the
away.
wagon.
So we're tracking, albeit behind. And what you can't see in that graph, but we're a little farther away in 24 than we are in 23. Yeah. What's also in compensation is now, and I imagine this is happening in different places, but in 2011, as you know, town, up until 2011, library full-time employees were able to participate in the town's pension scheme.
Yeah.
So with all those retirements that have happened over the last couple of years, one of the consequences has been every new employee is on our pension scheme.
Right.
So we had a gradual rise, and we've had a little bit of a jump just now. So in our compensation line is included a 40% jump in our pension costs.
Got it.
And this just looks at compensation as a percentage of our total run operating costs. And again, we're, below the midpoint. So looking at infrastructure, 2021, 22 have been lower than typical. And we're anticipating 24 to be, again, projections. We're going to have considerably increased costs on grounds work, which we've been projecting all along. 21, 22, we've had zero grounds work, right? We've had almost nothing in building and grounds, or for the grounds. And we've been obviously trying not to do any maintenance on the building we have at the moment that wasn't required for life safety for the last couple of years. So that's why you see those two dips, and then you see it coming up, and just you'll see this in the budget, but in the 2024 year, we've got some new infrastructure expense for the second building that we now have to operate, assuming that doesn't come on stream until late in the year. So again, that's a projection based on what we know today about what the running costs will look like for that legacy building. And so just to end with, the team that we employ are exceptional and extraordinary. And what they bring to the job every day to deliver to this community is just phenomenal. And this has been in the building we've been in currently. A lot of what happens, as you'll see in these photos, happens off-site at the moment because we don't have spaces to do a lot of this. But every single day they come so excited to serve this community, and that's just a joy. That's my story.
Excellent. Thank you.
Your facilities and what's B and G? Buildings and grounds. So you're estimating the cost of operating the new building is the same as operating the old building.
Pretty similar. That's what we're projecting right now.
Does the building have an emergency generator?
Does not. Darien decided that about 5, 6 years after they built their building, that they would do a special capital raise for a generator. We've never lost power. I mean, as you know, there's redundancy between here and the police station.
Right.
And we benefit from
You've
that.
never lost power.
Never lost power. Not in the 10 years I've been here. Even when 95% of the community is down, we've been,
That's true. I never remember the
yeah.
library going down through all the storms over the years.
Yeah, I presume it's because of the redundancy that's built into the grid between here and the police station.
You know, we have a mobile generator now that we bought with ARPA funds that we can go and plug into a building.
We're set up to plug in a generator.
Hmm.
So we could bring one in at any time.
Hmm.
We future-proofed it to enable that. That can be somebody's fundraising project.
You have
Another
electric heat only,
Do.
right? And you're gonna have solar panels ultimately. But in the summertime, when Eversource asks us to step down our use of electricity, we turn on our emergency generator. Because it's actually, well, one is required because they have to give brownouts to certain people.
That's when we'll have the most solar.
That's right, right.
How much is solar going to change the needle?
It should, over the course of a year.
Yeah.
So, right, peaks and drops with weather and the climate. 30% of total energy consumption. So, and I'm careful to say consumption, not costs, because obviously
Yeah.
energy costs are something none of us have much control over. But energy consumption should be something like 60% of the total consumption in the current building, of which another 30% should be offset by solar. We could definitely look at a partnership in future whereby you canopy the center school lot in some sort of,
What?
we could put solar over the center school lot. It'd be more valuable to everybody getting a space there because then
I don't think people want
be
to see.
protected from the sun. the rain,
I don't think people want to see
etc.
canopies on South Avenue.
It's good when they're on the top of a roof that you can't see.
We'd rather look at the high school or something.
Do you have any questions?
No,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
all right.
And we will see you
As per usual.
See you on the 4th.
on the 4th. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, have a great day. Are we all done?
I think so.
I move we adjourn at 12:05.
Second the motion.
See you Thursday.
I was right on time.